I was about to unmute myself there and promptly had two massive sneezes. Hello, friends and bees and friends who are also bees, and welcome to this week's Indie Thursday stream, featuring your sniffly friend, Mochi. This week we're going to be continuing our playthrough of Higurashi in the Cry, Miotsukushi Omote. Goodness. When we left off last week, drama with Shion. And this week we're picking up straight where we left off. I'm sure it'll be terrible, but nonetheless, I am sniffly and sneezy today. I apologise, just in general. Bear with me, we're in. My brain is always like, oh yeah, Higurashi, the game that takes 3 seconds to open, and forgets that it does actually take slightly longer. Anyway, end of chapter 19, we've got 8 chapters to go, I think. Yes, 8 chapters to go. I can do basic maths. Let us swap over to the gameplay. And the good news is that Stream Deck is working and recognizes when I try and tell it to do things via a functional app. Anyway, we're going to hop straight in at the end of chapter 19. I said that and then I was like, hang on. Because next chapter called Runaway Shion, which is just great. Okay, in we go. It began from a simple desire to cause some mischief. Huh? When I visited the clinic with the present for Satoko, I figured the entrance would be locked, so I went around the back. The truth is, the lock on the window in Stoker's exam room is broken, so it'll open if you put a little pressure between the gap. I noticed it while visiting the clinic a while ago. I felt a little awkward about quietly sneaking in, of course, but I wanted to put this cute stuffed animal on Stoker's bedside as soon as possible. That desire completely overrode morals and cons. Right, at the time I was feeling weirdly overexcited. I'm sure that was a lingering effect from all the fun I had with everyone at the festival. In that state, I suddenly looked ahead, and I could see Orishi lurking in the dark, dimly lit by the glow of a cigarette. What is Orishi doing? Considering the special circumstances of the night of Watanagashi, there was a chance he was out patrolling the village. But he wouldn't be able to see much in the darkness, though that didn't seem to be the case. Somehow his short and stout stature seemed to lack its usual strength and spirit. And I guess it's okay. I kept my footsteps quiet as I went around the back of the clinic. Sure enough, the window of her room was slightly ajar, so it would open easily with a slight push. I gently sat the stuffed animal down and quickly put my hands on the windowsill. As a doctor, I can't say I'm thrilled with the idea, but it is what it is. Huh? Somebody inside? Before I could even process it, the impact of hearing someone's voice was so overwhelming that my whole body froze. Voice. It's definitely the code. What's he doing here at this hour? You mean Satoko's older brother, Satoshi Hojo? So, Satoshi's here? In the clinic? Yes. Rika? I'm sorry. I still haven't told Keiichi and the others about Satoshi. Is that so? I heard it. It wasn't just the coach. Keiichi and Rika were inside having a conversation with him. I could clearly hear the coach let out a sigh. Then, I'm not mistaken about what I heard just now? I don't know if it's proper to say he's alive, but Satoshi's presence has played a crucial role in our research activities. It's no exaggeration to say that he's the reason we were able to help Satoko. Coach, what do you mean? Why can't you say that he's alive? Then, no way. Myotes of Hinamizawa, it seems they used humans as test subjects for the research. They were dissected into pieces to investigate the various components contained in their bodies. Among the people who went missing from time to time, it seems that some were used for these experiments. Can't be. Then Satoshi was taken away for these experiments. Takano, master manipulator, asked to be said. Please, someone tell me it's not true. To make it even worse, someone as kind and gentle as the coach is involved. I see. That's how it is. The coach must have had his eyes on Satoshi like that from the start, getting closer and pretending to be sympathetic, in order to use him as a test subject. Satoshi was having a rough time with the village. In such a lonely, pathetic state, anyone would open up to someone speaking kindly to them. Then his happiness was taken away by the cup. Then they used him. Right. That's right. That's what they decided. Even if Satoshi disappeared, nobody will be concerned about it. In fact, there are plenty of people who'd be pleased to see him go. Enrica, you knew where Satoshi was this whole time? Then does that mean Mion knew too? Can't be. Then Satoko's next? It's possible, and come to think of it, it's strange that she's been hospitalized here all this time even though she just fainted. I'm sure they're using a lot of medicine to keep her asleep. No way. They're planning to use Satoko for this evening's Watanagashi sacrifice? I won't allow it. I won't let them do it. I couldn't protect Satoshi back then. I wasn't paying enough attention and I didn't put in enough effort. But this time it's different. I protect her no matter what, because I made a promise to Satoshi. I'm relying on you with Satoko. I understand, Satoshi. You trusted me to take care of her, so I'll protect her. I won't let that hypocritical mad scientist take her away. So just watch. Then, I snuck into Mion's room in the sun's liking me. Naturally, Mion was already asleep. We promised to spend the night together, but she fell asleep right away. While being careful not to make a sound, I found the modified model gun that Mion always carries around sitting on her desk, and carefully pulled out the drawer to grab the ammo for it. She's been carrying that around less often to met Keiichi, but it is more than enough stopping power that the police would be concerned if it were actually loaded. It's a reference to Mion's original design, where for some reason she was just carrying a gun. She doesn't in the other designs, or if she does, it's like hiding, you can't see it. After checking the safety, I slipped it into my back pocket. Then, I quietly snuck out of Mion's room. I'll ask you one more time. Where is Satoshi? Irie gulped down his saliva while looking at the dangerous expression on Shion's face. The scent of gunpowder drifted from the muzzle of the gun pointed right at him. He was less afraid of that shining black weapon than he was worried about the fierce look in Shion's eyes. No way. Is Shion displaying heightened Hinamizawa syndrome? Shion, where did you hear that? Another gunshot roared out, and the window behind him shattered, sending glass shards flying. Shion's expression didn't change at all, and there was no hint of hesitation in her eyes. I asked first. Answer me before asking questions of your own. Where is Satoshi? Well, let me just say, you're making a big mistake if you think I won't shoot. If you're not going to tell me, I won't hesitate to fire right through your forehead. And then I'll just search the place on my own. Shion coldly made that declaration. And as if to corroborate her words, the muzzle pointing towards Irie's face slowly moved to point towards his chest. If I'm shooting an enemy, the chest is the easiest target to aim for, especially if your aim isn't to kill in a single blow. Now, would you raise both your hands to demonstrate your understanding, and then put your hands behind your head? Shion was dead serious, so Irie raised his hands as ordered, without saying anything unnecessary. Shion. No further explanation is required. Don't say anything unless explicitly asked to. Now please, lead me to wherever Satoshi is. Shion moved behind Irie and placed the tip of the gun against his back. Then she prodded him and took a step to coax him forward. Oh, that's right. Please shut off the security system. You have one here, don't you? Very well. They exited the exam room and headed to the door at the end of the hallway. And when the door swung open, there was a set of stairs leading to the second floor. However, Irie stepped in the other direction and moved the cardboard boxes stuck behind the stairs. Then she could see the stairs leading down to the basement. Satoshi's down there? That's right. Shion, I realise that no amount of apology will ever make up for keeping this from you. But to be perfectly honest, I don't think it will benefit you to go any further. So, if you say another word, I'll shoot. I mean it. Shion had a cold-blooded look on her face as she clicked the hammer of the gun with her thumb. Her index finger was still on the trigger, and the muzzle was still pressed against Irie's back. If Shion got just the tiniest bit upset and pulled a little strength into her finger, it would literally open a hole in Irie's torso. Even if he died, it wouldn't stop Shion from advancing forward. But it wasn't a joyous reunion waiting for her ahead. It was a worst-case scenario. Heading down. Please, watch your step. Looking over Irie's shoulder, she could vaguely see the door leading to the basement level. Shion warily kept an eye on Irie as he watched her feet, heading down the stairs. The sound of the footsteps echoed all around, and as they approached the door, the air that had been silent up until then began to tremble with the sound of some mechanical device. Fear and anxiety gradually bubbled up from the depths of her heart, and in order to cover that up, Shion subconsciously focused a hatred and bloodlust towards Irie. Irie opened the door, and then Shion nudged him forward. She was slightly shocked when she stepped inside and took a look around. It was even larger than the ground floor, and there were many rooms arranged on both sides of the central corridor. The interior was vaguely lit by a dim security light. After stepping inside, she was able to clearly hear the electronic sounds, presumably coming from medical equipment. It was less like a hospital and more like a morgue. Satoshi. She clenched her jaw so tight it seemed like her teeth would shatter. Satoshi was trapped in a place like this. In this cold, dark, gloomy place where you can only hear unpleasant mechanical sounds. Unforgivable, givable. So you had another floor built down here. This clinic is looking more and more unsavory. Shion made a light jest, but Irie remained silent, perhaps still complying with her earlier order. That simple, earnest behaviour made her click a tongue in frustration, and she couldn't help but feel an irritating itch on her neck and her wrists. Waggles eyebrows intensely. When she looked up, Irie was looking back over her shoulder, and their eyes met. His eyes were so obnoxious. That pitying, patronising, laughing smile. She wasn't sure how many times she wanted to shoot him. Still, carrying Irie here would make it that much harder to locate Satoshi. Even though she said she'd searched alone, walking around in a place she knew nothing about seemed risky. Eventually, Irie came to a stop in front of the door at the end of the hall. And then he slowly looked back towards Shion. In here. She couldn't help it. Shion shoved Irie aside, then jumped towards a glass window on the door and focused on what was inside. Inside was a bed, where Satoshi was sleeping, with an IV drip attached to his arm. A device for measuring brainwaves was attached to his forehead and chest, and the waves of light were being drawn on the monitor. At the very least, it was proof that he was still alive. She was prepared. When she heard Irie say he wasn't sure if she could be described as alive or dead, she prepared herself for the worst-case scenario, seeing Satoshi set up like in a human anatomy in a science classroom. But Satoshi was right there, just like he was before. She was so glad to see it, but after witnessing that, all she could think about was helping him. Satoshi! He was probably in very deep sleep. Considering how pale his face looked, it would have been hard to say that he was alive without being told so. He's alive? Satoshi is still alive? How is this possible? Answer me. Before long, she realised that shouting was useless, so she tried to get inside by wildly turning the knob. But she noticed the keycard reader attached to the wall beside the door, then turned and pointed a gun at Irie once again. Hurry up! Open it! Open it already! Shion, please. I don't even care if you shoot me, but there's one thing I desperately want you to promise me. This late in the game, Irie started pushing demands on Shion. She had a look of rage in her eye. Please, never open this door. You mustn't try to wake him up. Please promise me only that. Why? Why shouldn't I wake him up? Pardon me. That was the thing that Shion most wanted to do. She wanted to rescue him and be the first to tell him that he was free. She felt indignant at being told to do so. Satoshi is sick, and at present, a complete cure isn't something we can hope for. Huh? You're giving me that nonsense even after we've come all the way here? How many times do I have to say this? I'll shoot you if you don't open it immediately. It's true. Please, believe that. I completely understand how you feel, but if you enter this room and meet him, I'm sure you'll regret it. A gunshot roared out and Irie staggered in place. A bullet fired to intimidate him grazed his right arm and fresh blood came oozing from the wound. Next might be your leg, or maybe your shoulder. The stomach is always an option. Now open it already. Would you rather I open a hole in your belly right here? Shion, don't look at me. Don't look at me with that face. It's so annoying. Come on. Didn't you hear me? I said hurry up and open it. If you want to shoot me, just shoot. I've committed enough sins that you'd be more than justified. But you mustn't open this door. On my honor as a doctor, I won't allow any more tragedy. Upon seeing Irie desperately howl in a way she'd never seen before, Shion began trembling and pulled the trigger without thinking. I can't emote with my voice, so just pretend that, appropriate emotions are being acted out. He wasn't aiming at anything particular, but it bounced off the floor and cut his cheek. A line of red blood came trailing down, but he didn't show any hesitation. He stared straight at Shion and stood directly in front of the muzzle. It's painful, but I'll tell you the truth. Satoshi suffered serious damage to his mind and body due to the repeated stress he endured a year ago. Fortunately, there are no life-threatening abnormalities, but at the moment, Satoshi's unable to distinguish friend from foe, so he perceives everyone as hostile to him. What does that mean? Everything he experiences is interpreted maliciously. He's haunted by an excessive persecution complex and overrun by fear. In order to escape from that, he'll lash out at anyone in front of him. Last year, he injured a careless staff member so severely that the wounds required plastic surgery. And he won't make any exceptions, not even for you. Then Shion finally noticed. Satoshi had a blanket draped over the bed, but on top of that were two seatbelt-looking things that were there to prevent him from getting out. And there were leather belts tied to his arms, keeping them chained to the bed. And those leather belts had a lot of scratches and blemishes, traces of his violent outburst. Wait, he cured? The silence in his response was too cruel. Even Irie wanted to say that Satoshi would never recover. But he was a doctor. He knew that speaking irresponsibly would eventually end up hurting people, so he couldn't say anything. What is this? What is this? Then Satoshi won't speak to me? Won't pat my head? Why? Tears came spilling out as Shion pounded on the glass. You can't. If you truly care about him, then please don't wake him up. That's all I ask. If you wake him up, the Satoshi in there will only end up hurting you, and Satoshi wouldn't want you to see him like that. So please try to understand. Help me. Shion slid down the glass window while sobbing, and ended up lying on the floor, and she scratched at the floor. She vented her rage about their tragic reunion by clawing at the floor. If Satoshi's smiling face were under that floor, Shion would keep scratching at it until the nails peeled off. But he wasn't. He was in there, sleeping on that bed, embraced in a sleep he'd never awakened from. Abrupt fear? Yes, we're fine. Never mind. Why? And then, Shion's sadness transformed into anger and hatred, and she once again pointed a pistol at Irie. Why didn't you tell me? When Satoshi disappeared, why did you hide it? It doesn't matter how much he changed or if he went crazy, or even if he's no longer able to speak. If I knew that he was alive, I'd feel relieved, not sad. Believe there was still hope. And yet, why? Irie remained standing still, looking at London. And he seemed repentant, because he didn't look scared and wasn't making any effort to escape. What did you think that Stoko and I were waiting for? How long did our hearts need to be crushed? How much misery did Stoko need to endure? You were close to her. You should have seen it better than anyone. And yet you've been lying to us all this time? And if I told you, what do you think would happen? Irie no longer had a look of determination on his face. If I told you, I'm certain you'd want to see him. And when you met, you'd want to touch him. You'd want to talk. It wouldn't make you happy. It would only bring you more pain. Don't try to trick me. That's just your own thoughtless assumption. I won't deny that I underestimated his illness myself. I thought he'd be able to cure him relatively quickly, so I was planning to tell you the truth after his condition improved. If the two of you were going to meet, I wanted the both of you to be in good health. But Satoshi's self-awareness never returned, and in the end he even lost his ability to speak. You're just making excuses. You're enjoying it. Seeing us crying, grieving and suffering. And all the while you were pretending to be sympathetic for your own amusement. That wasn't my intent. Still, it was my own stupidity that brought you where you are today. Considering that, you must hate me enough to want me dead. That's right. Shion's hand trembled as she aimed the pistol. Her patience was already at its limit. You can rest easy, because I'll kill you. The harm that you've done to Satoshi, and what you've done to Satoko and me. But before that, can you answer me one thing? Yes. That machine, what is it for? What are you doing to Satoshi's body? We've injected a virus into Satoshi in order to identify a treatment for the pathogen. We're conducting research in order to create chemical reagents. You're doing that to Satoshi? I mean, like, yes, human research isn't good, but in this case, like, I feel like perhaps morals can be bent a bit in this specific case, you know? Feel free to disagree, sound off in the comments. Overcome with fury, Shion put strength into her trigger finger. But that moment... Shion? God, I cannot do my Reina voice whatsoever anymore. When we entered the exam room, the stuffed animal and shattered glass lying on the floor made it clear that something unusual was going on. What on earth happened to you? Coach? Keiichi? While Mion was standing around looking flustered, Rika suddenly lit up and rushed past her to check on the bed. Despite the disturbed state of the room, Satoko was still sleeping there, gentle look on her. Seeing that allowed us to heave a heavy sigh of relief. Satoko's alright. But what about the coach? This is clearly the handiwork of the guy, and... Mion's face looked extremely pale as she picked up the stuffed animal that was lying on the floor. This is the gift Shion told me she was going to give Satoko. Then does that mean that she's here too? You don't have time to think it over, Keiichi. You have to find them. It was a miracle that we were able to. The door leading to the staircase was accidentally left open, and the collapsed cardboard boxes revealed a stairwell behind them. When we saw that, we intended to divide the club members into two groups, one for the basement and one for the second floor. But we were all feeling upset and rushed downstairs. Shion? But fortunately, that worked in our favour. Reina had good eyesight and was able to see someone pointing a gun at the back of the man in the lab coat, over by the door at the end of the hall. Then, when we ran down the hallway, and when I finally adjusted to the darkness, I could see the man in the lab coat was the killer. I cried out, "What are you doing, Shion?" Keeping is my plan, sorry. Don't come any closer. Nobody move. Even though it was just a warning shot, hearing it in this enclosed space made us all stop at once. Even from this distance I could tell how distraught the coach looked, and Shion was holding a gun in both hands, pointing it to threaten us. Shion? Everyone has been lying and deceiving me. Everyone has been hiding Satoshi from me. Huh? Shion, what are you talking about? You said anything about Satoshi? Don't play dumb, Mion. When you told me we'd search for him together, I was so happy. So happy you finally understood my feelings. And yet that was all a lie? I don't know what you mean. Why are you saying this? Why don't you believe me? Mion, I'm sorry. This is my fault. Mion was half crying and Rika tugged at her sleeve to stop her. Then she slowly stepped in front of us and turned towards the couch. Shion, Mion really didn't know about this. The only people who knew were me and Ariel. So this has nothing to do with anyone besides us. Rika? Rika? So you're in league with this scoundrel too? This man has been toying with Satoshi's body, using him for human experiments. Satoshi? What do you mean? You're saying he's here? Human experiments? Rika, what are they talking about? I don't understand. Please explain. Rika looked back over her shoulder with a pained expression to see me and Reino looking confused. I realised something when I saw that face and began to speak up. That room behind Shion, that's where Satoshi is? Really? He's still alive? And he was right there in that room? Can you really call that being alive? Being treated like a test subject to develop new drugs? You decided that. You allowed it. You said that it was a good idea. You're using his body for something inhumane. I'm also being used as a test subject. Satoko and I are both cooperating as test subjects to support research into Hinamizawa syndrome. If we want to learn the inner workings of the disease, we need to test the effectiveness of Irie's new drugs on living people. Huh? Me and Reina were both completely at a loss after hearing a combination of words they never expected to hear. I had at least heard about the endemic disease before, but I was surprised to learn that Satoko was participating in the research too. And Satoko? Satoko doesn't know. I've already told you about this, but at one point she fell ill with the terminal symptoms of Hinamizawa syndrome. Joining this project and continuing to experiment with new drugs was the only way to save her life. Why didn't you tell us? This is the first I've heard of that, you know. Satoko became ill because of a very unfortunate accident. Shion. I wanted to avoid telling this to people who care about Satoko as much as possible. 3 years ago, she was having a hard time getting used to her new father and dealing with a lot of stress in her daily life. Oh hey, you mean... Rika turned her gaze downward at Mion's question, in order to shoulder the burden of that painful feeling the coach spoke of. 3 years ago, on the day of Higurashi, Satoko's parents went on a trip with her, but the two of them died falling off the cliff. According to the official police statement, it was considered an accident due to the deteriorated railing there. But according to our research, there was a very strong possibility that they were pushed by someone. And if you consider the eyewitness testimony, the people near the scene were just the Hojo couple and Satoko. That's a lie. Unable to bear it any longer, Shion cried out. And you're saying that Satoko is the one who killed her parents? Let me tell you, Satoko isn't that kind of girl. She likes to play pranks, but she's gentle and strong-willed. She's the kind of girl that knows right from wrong. No matter how much she hated them, no matter how much she might have wanted to kill them, Satoko would never do that. Don't just go saying whatever you want. I won't let you slander her. That's true, but it's because of Hinamizawa syndrome. Rika shook her head and spoke in a downhearted voice. People affected with Hinamizawa syndrome perceive everyone around them as an enemy. Even seemingly trivial words or actions will make them feel doubt and ground suspicion, filling them with insecurity. Leads to aggressive emotions, driving one to self-defense. But Shion, what you said is true. Satoko isn't a bad person. She's a sweet, gentle girl, but it's this disease's fault that she's being pushed in another direction. Irie and I both understand that. That's why I want to help her. I've been repeatedly testing medication in order to do that, but it would be unreasonable to expect results anytime soon. In addition to that, given the severity of Satoko's symptoms, new parents, a conflict with Teppei and his wife, and the poor response, these factors only worsened her. And a few days after last year's Watanagashi, I met up with Satoshi. Satoshi confessed to me that he'd killed his own. Nevertheless, he said he wanted to buy a birthday present for Satoko before turning himself into the police, so I brought him to the toy store. He bought the stuffed animal, but then we were on our way to the police station. Satoshi was sitting in the passenger seat. He suddenly went on a rampage. He started throwing things at me even though I was still driving, bared his teeth and bit me. I desperately tried to restrain him. Eventually, he began scratching at his throat, and I realised that it was the onset of Hinamizawa syndrome. So I forcibly put him to sleep using an anaesthetic I happened to have on hand, brought him to this laboratory. I wanted to help him at any cost. I knew the people who cared about him, like Shion and Satoko, would be disconsolate, so I couldn't let that happen. But reality is cruel. The exam results revealed that his symptoms had reached level 5. In accordance with the manual, a prognosis that negative normally results in an order to youth as a subject. I panicked. There was no way Satoshi could live a happy human life the way things were. And if so, but on the other hand, I wanted to think that there was a glimmer of hope in the future of medical progress. So to that end, I persuaded upper management and the other staff to have him confined in this room for testing of yes, to look him away in here. But it's ironic. Thanks to the samples we got from him and the fact that Satoko's genetic makeup was very similar to his, we were able to develop new drugs capable of suppressing symptoms save her. So you're saying Satoko was currently cooperating with your research? I can't deny that she's being treated as a test subject. You're welcome to criticize me for doing something inhuman. But without that, there'd be no way to help her or to protect Satoshi. Yeah, the justification that I was thinking, such as it is. I doubt that this disease would be covered by any form of medical insurance, and treatment would be extremely expensive. So I experimented on the two of them, using state funds. Couldn't come up with any other solution. Can't be. Shion violently trembled as she pointed the gun at Iri. Satoshi's illness was incurable. Unable to accept that harsh fact, tears came spilling out. She cried out, while the look of sadness and despair on her face gradually transformed into murderous intent. You expect me to believe that made-up story? I won't be fooled. I'll never let you trick me. You're only saying that because you don't want to lose him. You're only worried about your status and reputation. You just want to use him to sate your selfish desires. That's all this is, isn't it? Shion. It's a lie. You're all lying. Satoshi isn't so. He doesn't have some unknown illness. If he wakes up, he'll smile like he always did. He'll gently pat my head and say moo with a smile on his face. Shion passionately declared that. She shoved the tip of the pistol between the coach's eyebrows. Then she pulled the hammer back and put her finger on the trigger. Stop, Shion. Please stop, Shion. That voice. Footsteps came rushing over from behind. We all turned back at once. Why? The girl yelling that out was Satoko? Enough! Please, that's enough, Shion. Please, somehow, stop this already. Satoko stepped in front of the muzzle and spread her arms to protect the girl, while screaming and spilling tears with a sweaty expression on her pale face. Shion was, or rather all of us, were watching the scene, were struggling to grasp whether what we were witnessing was actually real. I've lost the ability to speak English. Satoko, how much of that did you hear? All of it? I was able to hear it. About my illness following the incident 3 years ago. All of it. Rika gasped and froze as soon as she heard that. But when she looked at Satoko with eyes full of despair, Satoko responded with a lonely smile as she continued. Even though Rika kept quiet about it, I already knew. Sometimes I have dreams and memories of that day. Satoko. But no matter what anyone says, no matter what anyone thinks, my sin will never disappear. Because of that, I made a great deal of trouble and hardship for Nini. I truly am an awful god of pestilence. Satoko, don't say that. Never once thought of you like that. You're our precious friend. That's right. Satoko, Reina loves you. Every day is so much more fun because you're there with her. Satoko, I really do think it's terrible that the villagers treat you coldly and don't do things. But from now on, we'll do our best to protect you. I'll do everything I can to help you feel truly happy. Satoko, please don't say something so sad. Even if you say you're a god of pestilence, I don't believe in gods. Besides, I'm always so happy when I'm around Satoko. Everyone. Satoko looked so happy. And none of that happened. We're definitely still low. I've disconnected from StreamLabs as a streamer, but I can't be asked to fix it right. We're back. Turned to Shion once more. I truly am an awful human. But despite that, there are people willing to give me strong, kind-hearted encouragement. Just like everyone else, the coach has always been worried about me, and doing his best to cheer me up. Oh, but you're being used as a test subject. That's fine. Besides, if there's anything I can do to help. There are people out there working hard for the sake of my happiness. So I want to do what I can for everyone else. I want you to believe in me, just as I believe in everyone else. I was terribly surprised to learn about me, but I can clearly tell there was a reason to keep it secret. Everyone was being considerate of me, so I have no reason to doubt their kindness. My friends, the coach, and you too, Shion. You're my Nene. Stoko. The problem is there's not like you could say you're my brother or you're my sister, but there's not that I can think of an equivalent to things like Nini or Nene. Like you wouldn't say bro or sis. I mean you could do, but I've never heard anyone say that. At the most you would have like bro or sis. But also like as a reader, I find it kind of... Okay, I'm gonna go on a brief rant here. One of the problems that any translator of anything ever will always have is that you're threading the needle between loyalty to the original text and comprehensibility to your audience. And one of the ways that you thread that needle is by, if there are puns or phrases or rhetorical like tones that are used in the original language, one of the ways that you can thread that needle is by finding a translated equivalent to it. So for example, you know, if someone referred to their brother as One-san rather, or like Nini, you could translate that as like bro or brother or something like that. So the way that like Satoko always refers to Satoshi as Nini, you could say, I was truly surprised to hear about brother. The thing is, I, as a reader, find it disconcerting when people do that, because at least in British English, which is what I grew up speaking, and American English, which is, you know, what I have absorbed from the internet, you don't tend to hear that. To be honest, if I had somebody referring to someone else as like surprised to hear what happened to brother or what happened to sister, I would expect a name after that, and I would expect them to be a nun or a monk. Quite honestly, that's probably more than anything else because of like the research that I do and where my academic interest lie, but you know how it be. Anyway, the point is that like there's a couple of, so I normally don't do honorifics, I just say names, or like I might say, you know, Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. when it's appropriate, like sort of saying Mr. Kano from the kids because they're sort of respectful, or saying that to the teacher. But Oyashiro-sama is one of the things that I always leave. And there's two reasons for that. The first is that I started saying it, and by the time that I realised that was the only honorific that I was using, I got into the habit and didn't want to stop. The second is that in English, the best translation would either be Lord Oyashiro or Lady Oyashiro. The thing is, the figure of Oyashiro doesn't seem to have a gender. Hanyu is, at least looks like a girl, but I don't know if she considers herself female, and there's definitely plenty of texts where Oyashiro is referred to as male. So saying Oyashiro-sama to me still preserves that gender neutrality, which we don't know in English. Is Oyashiro a god or a goddess, or even like a deity who considers such things relevant whatsoever? Which brings me back to my point, which is that the reason I say Nini or Nene is because I personally don't think there is an equivalent in English which conveys the same thing. I still find it kind of weird when I say it, but unless I work out a good nickname, I guess it's also, I don't know, like a bro especially. I don't necessarily think of it like the familial context, I think of it in like the friendly, what's a bro? Anyway. Your Nini. Satoko. Slowly, as Satoko said that. And that's been my rant on translation, honorifics, and threading the needle between the two. Shion was still holding the gun, but Satoko slowly walked up to her and put both hands on Shion. And then as Shion looked down at her with a bewildered expression, she nodded with a big smile on her. Please, Nini. Things are scary and worrying when you're all alone, but we're in this together, so you can believe me, can't you? Someday, Nini will come home. Okay with that? We're able to endure that? No matter how long it takes. No matter what it takes to believe. Satoshi may still not come home, right? Even if she keeps hoping and praying. I thought might still end up betrayed in the end. That's what Shion's eyes were asking. However, Satoko maintained a calm, bright smile and steadily nodded her head. I'm certain I'll be able to keep waiting, because Shion feels the exact same way as me, and she's here taking care of me, because I have my Nini. Maybe I should just say Nini for all of them. It's Nay. After hearing those words from Satoko, the look on her face, desperately forcing a smile even though she wanted to cry, little by little my frozen heart was melting, healing. Even though you wanted to cry, even though you wanted to scream and cry, even more so than me, even though you wanted to smack someone, why are you so concerned about me? Hey Satoshi, I understand. I finally understand. I hate to break up this dramatic scene, but I just abruptly had the thought that I need to check something really quickly. 13. 21. Right, so I've got 3 more weeks, so I could ostensibly do 3 more weeks and then all of the endings. I finally understand. That's why you continue doing everything you could to protect this girl, no matter how painful it was. Satoko was our little sister. Such a courageous, thoughtful girl. Both of Shion's arms dropped and the gun fell to the floor. Then she knelt on the ground, sniffling and crying, and Satoko snuggled up to her. Shion hugged her little body and cried out. Satoko, sorry. I'm sorry. Thanks, Nini. Thank you for all that you've done to me. I knew deep down. I knew it. But it was so sad and painful. My heart wouldn't stop. I was full of shame and regret, and I didn't know what to do. Right, I know that already. Because my Nini is a very, very kind person. Satoko buried her crying face in Shion's chest. Eventually, Shion's mood seemed to have changed, and Satoko joined her in crying out loud for a while longer, just holding one another and crying. Those were the tears of a very, very kind-hearted pair of sisters. Seven chapters left to go, lads. What's this one called? That's counterattack, I think. Return to 5 years past. Chapter 20. Let's go. When he heard the story, he felt totally lost. After all, he thought retirement pay was something precious. However, I wish he ultimately came to a decision. The final push came from something he heard from Yang Maoki today regarding Tomoe's case. You mean that arrest drama at the Kakeuchi airport? Was Tomoe avenging her parents? That's right. After 12 young years, she finally managed to do it. Wish he had heard about the Kakeuchi airport incident through TV and other media. This is a reference to the advanced story, which, when I get back from my hollybobs, is what we will be starting. It's the final storyline. So with Higurashi, you have like the main 8 games. Then you have all these alternate versions, alternate endings, ongoing endings, stuff like that. And then you have the advanced story. Then there is Hinamizawa Butt Stop, and the other 2 in that, which were whole before it started getting translated, which makes it a real pain in the ass to try and find them. Anyway, those I think are like experimental sort of standalones. and then you have the advanced story. And originally Miotsukushi was like tied together both of those stories, but during a later re-release they were separated and expanded. So there was the Miotsukushi Omote, which is like the main story, and Ura, which is the extra story, alternate story plus, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, this is related to that. TV and other media. What's more, there are powerful organisations and big-name individuals lurking in the shadow behind these deals, so significant media restrictions were in place. But of course, nobody could ever expect that a conspiracy of that magnitude was playing out behind the scenes. And it would never have been possible without the strong will and detective soul that she inherited from her father. I'm deeply proud of her. We'll provide a full report before long, but I wanted to be the first to let you know. Even 12 years after losing her parents, Tomoe kept on believing and never gave up. Of course, with him being old and her being young, you could say that the size of what they lost was not the same. But just like Yamaoki, Oishi felt proud. Proud of his work as a detective, having done as much as he could to teach Tomoe the nature of justice. And if that's the case, then he can't betray himself. How could he face Tomoe next time they met if he went back on his word after talking so big? That fierce, burning hot spirit was truly inspiring Oishi's feeble heart. And at dawn he called the old man from forensics and Kumagai to a room and confessed everything. I know I'm repeating myself, but this is a dangerous bridge we're crossing here. If I get simple warning, that's okay, but if I get reprimanded, they'll probably take away my pension. Hey, Oishi? I hear you always gather your colleagues at the mahjong parlor next door and threaten them every time you have a dangerous mission. It's the same old thing, right? Yeah, Higurashi. Why don't you say, if you don't want to lose your pension, leave while I count to 10 with more oomph in your voice, like you usually do. Unless you say it that way, it just doesn't sound right. Well, this seriously is dangerous. Are you really prepared to lose your pension? Why don't you count to 10 then? Fine, I'll count. If you don't want to lose your retirement money, leave before I count to 10. Okay, I got it, Kuma, you're serious. But still, are you sure you're okay with it? Yes. I'm really psyched up from what I heard from Akasaka the other day. I became a policeman because I believe in justice. Someday, I want to be able to talk about the things I've been through, like Akasaka does. Dangerous mission? Sounds fantastic. Besides, your ideas have never failed before. So if you think this operation will succeed, then I'm all for it. How nice it is to be young. You know, Akasaka's become quite the inspiration for him. He keeps talking about how he wants to be involved in the secret investigations. Well, it's nice to be young, I guess. What about you? I'm in. I mean, it sounds like everything depends on if I can pull the victim's autopsy report. I've been neglecting my health all these years. Frankly, I don't think I have much longer to live. As a man, I want to do something grand before I die. Am I? You two sure are fearless. That's why you declare Ricci even with 3 flipped to What are you saying, Oishi? As a man, I can't refuse. If you're going to cut something, cut it right in the middle. That's what you always say. He's not wrong. I get it. If your necks end up on the line, I'll be responsible. We'll have to make some preparations first. It's difficult to investigate with our current personnel and equipment. Maybe I'll call in my acquaintances in forensics to lend a hand. Oishi, when all this is over, you have to treat me to something big, okay? Of course. Look forward to it. But please make sure to be careful who you talk to, alright? They told me there are some spies at the police station. Don't worry, I know who I can trust. Count on me for that at least. Right, and fired up. My detective spirit is burning bright. It had taken Oishi all night to make a decision, but those two decided immediately. He couldn't help but question himself. I have some errands to run, so go to get going. I apologize for suddenly making such an unreasonable order. Don't worry about it. It's been a while since something got my blood boiling. In all the years of my life, this is the first big stage to really test my manhood. I'm not afraid. I'm going to enjoy this. Same here. Let's do it, Oishi. Thank you, old-timer, you know. Oishi turned to the two of them with a powerful smile and deeply bowed his head in appreciation. I see. Anyway, I think I have a good grasp of the situation. Mion slowly nodded her head after listening to me and Reika provide her explanation. Then she approached me with a determined look on her face, and we smiled at one another. Oh, Keiichi. About that. So... Ow. She suddenly pointed behind me, and I turned to look, then felt an impact on the back of my head. As soon as I turned back, Mion was glaring at me with her clenched fist shaking. Listen, Keiji. I told you before. I know you were thinking of us when you kept this a secret. But, well, do you not think you can rely on us? That's not it. But what? Listen, Keiji, you're speaking to me seriously. I'll listen all the way until the end without teasing you. And if you ask for my help, I'm ready to respond with all my power. That's what I've been doing all this time. But Keiji, if you ever doubted me, even a little, then I'm ready to walk away from our friendship right here. So what is it? Mion's face gradually stiffened and started looking more and more angry as she spoke. I couldn't help but feel guilty seeing her like that. Sorry, Mion, and everyone. We were being overly cautious, and that made us take too long to discuss it with all of you. I'm sorry. That's not it. Mion is upset because you didn't trust her as much as Rika. Isn't that it? No way. Maybe a little. Mion fidgeted and pouted. When she saw that, Reina went cute and teased her, then quickly turned around and looked after being serious. Keiji, you told me that friends can share their burdens with one another. Reina feels the same way. Keiji, Rika, you're not being a bother at all. I'm happy to hear that you want my help. Because hearing that is proof that you trust Reina. So don't hesitate to speak up just because you don't want to cause us trouble. Sometimes you have secrets you don't want to tell anyone. But at the same time, it can be painful to recognize that someone is withholding something from you, right? Right. I can't argue with my own words. I meekly bowed my head as I said that. But Rika stepped forward as if to protect me. Mion and Reina. I'm the one who turned to Keiji for help. At that point, I didn't know enough about our enemy's movements or intentions, so I thought it would be best to avoid making people feel hostile. Because doing so could make our enemy restless, heightening the danger of the situation. I understand that, but the situation is already plenty emotionally charged. Anyway, we can get back to that later. Are you all prepared, Keiji? That's right. You understand, don't you, Keiji? Mion and Reina shrugged their shoulders and softened their expressions and began to smile. I'm really glad to have the two of them as friends. However, with regard to Mia's situation, I believe that Rika's lack of explanation so far. The situation were handled slightly better. Perhaps Shion wouldn't have gotten so upset and the coach wouldn't have ended up getting hurt. I feel bad about that. Rika looked downcast and bowed once again to apologise to the coach who was sitting in the back of the room and to Shion who was beside him, bandaging him. Fortunately, the gunshots left only shallow wounds and the coach was able to treat them to stop the bleeding. I can't apologise for that. In fact, all of this began due to my own carelessness. I don't think Shion and Satoko can ever forgive me for what I've done. It's alright, Coach. I'm truly happy just knowing that Nini is still alive. Right, Shion? But Shion kept quiet and looked down as she continued wrapping around the coach's shoulder. Her expression was dark, and even though Satoko addressed her so cheerfully, Satoko's expression clouded over when she noticed it. Shion. Listen, Shion. I really do understand how you... But it's just as Satoko says. We need to have a talk about what we're doing from here on, yeah? Shion. I understand that, but I'm still not satisfied. Even if I know that in my head, my heart just can't keep up. Shion, please lend me your strength. That may be enough for the rest of you, but I can't quietly accept it. After all that effort, so much effort, that's enough, Shion. Would you try a little harder to think about how the coach must feel? Shion. Satoko had tears in her eyes. Looking at that, Shion finally raised her head and turned to Satoko and spoke up. I told you, I can't accept that. Hey, Shion. Why did Satoko go back to calling me Shion? Wasn't she calling me Mimi earlier? Huh? Everyone was at a loss for words at the moment, unable to process what Shion had just said. Shion? Come on, do it again. Satoko, are you messing with me? You're gonna call me Mimi and let me get excited only to push me away afterwards. That's what this is? Making me happy, then immediately pulling back and treating me coldly? But I've already caught on to your tricks. But don't you think it would be better to show a little bit of tenderness at times like these? Maybe you're planning to use it as a bargaining chip to get out of your carrot and asparagus lunches in the future. Is that it? Come on. Sorry, but is this an appropriate time to laugh? Is it? Shouldn't you be angry? Ready to smack someone? She can't read the air at all. Oh, Lord. Mion hit me with a powerful backhanded blow right after I could it. Stoko. What is it, Rika? Now, would you mind just calling her that? This conversation is going nowhere fast. Rika was looking listless from shock, and she held her hand to her forehead as she tapped Stoko on the shoulder. Well, this is still better than the bloodbath it could have devolved. Stoko turned red for a little while, then heartily called her name. And then Shion, who had been looking at us just a moment ago, was now donning an ecstatic, playful smile. Anyway, let's get back to the main topic. Is there anyone here who needs further explanation? I looked around at everyone as I said that. They were all wide-eyed, with shocked looks on their faces. Though I suppose that's a reasonable reaction. In fact, given how extraordinary the story is, it'd be perfectly natural for them to be shocked. You're lying, right? Of course, if I said it was all a joke at this point, every one of them would beat me until I was as red as an octopus. To be perfectly honest, there are a number of things I'd like to hear as the acting head of the Sonozaki family. About the causes of these past incidents and the truth behind all these secrets. Now let's set that aside. Our top priority at the moment is ensuring Rika's safety, and the next priority is finding a way to intercept the enemy. Let's focus on what we should do moving forward to address those two objectives. Mion looked around at Reina and the others as she said that, then turned back to me and nodded. Now it seems that they believe Rika and I are being sincere. I could tell from the look in her eyes, it was encouraging to see. Anyway, I think taking refuge at my house is a good plan. That basement could even slow nuclear warfare. It has electricity and a working phone, and of course it has food too. If these mountain dogs are as troublesome as you say, it's the only place in the village that we can safely hide Rika. Sorry for getting everyone involved in this. Rika apologized from the bottom of her heart. Up until now, she's always kept this strange illness called Hinamizawa syndrome, and her connections to this mysterious Tokyo organization secret. That was because she was prepared to shoulder the burden alone, rather than getting us involved. That's why she was still wavering even when she confessed to me, and she'd never succeeded against this enemy in the past, so that was all the more reason to feel uneasy. Still, I took a good look at everyone to encourage them. Rika, it's alright. To be honest, I was feeling a little lost about the scale of all this. Hey, everyone. Deep down, don't you all think it's getting pretty interesting? Satoko, you look like you're ready to take this seriously. I'm sure we'll have plenty of use for you later. You have a treasure trove of Lucas traps hidden away that we can make use of, don't you? We're going to hit those guys so hard they won't have a chance. Oh, thank you for giving me an opportunity to fulfill my role as a club member. I know not who our foes are, but if I take this seriously, I won't hesitate to use my greatest, most marvellous traps. Ones that could even take out club members. That's right. Mion can vouch for Satoko's trap. Even if we're up against a real army, Satoko's traps can take them all out. We're applauding Satoko, but of course Reina wouldn't show them either. Reina is usually calm and quiet, but I know what she's capable of when she gets serious. She's easily our best fighter, strength second to none. That's Reina. When she gets going, if I had to take her on directly, I'd probably have no chance of winning. Looks at camera like I'm in the office. That's not true. Keiichi, you're the greatest one here. You have sudden bursts of amazing power. Maybe you could shatter a fate that even I couldn't handle. Keiichi is a red-hot burning flame, then Reina's more like a quietly burning blue flame. Blue flames actually burn hotter than red flames, you know? It's a good metaphor. Keiichi Maebara, the man burning red, and Reina Ryugyu, the girl burning blue. It's a great opportunity to let the world know the kind of people our club has. In addition to that, our club members also have the greatest tag team team. The strongest pieces are invincible when properly aligned. That's our club. Well, I haven't spent all that much time as a club member. But Keiichi, I'm the club leader. Promise to never betray your expectations. Let's teach those fools, big and small, a lesson about trying to defy the Sonozaki sisters. I was wrong. This chapter has commenced counterattack. The next one is Return to 5 Years Past. Okay, update. Chapter title, in that case. Or stream title. I kept quiet because I was trying to stay modest, but this old man was actually thinking the same thing. Those guys are in for something interesting. Rika, I'm grateful. You've kept us well informed about our prey. Here in Hinamisawa, nobody can decide something without first properly greeting our club. Let's show them where they stand. Everyone was waving their arms and getting excited all at once. Our morale was at its peak. We were up against an enormous conspiracy, but with all of us together, there was no way we could lose. We were feeling great. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for believing in me. Rika's eyes teared up and she deeply bowed her head. We'd finally managed to win her trust, and knowing that made me feel even more ready to fight. Now then, let's have a strategy meeting. First off, even if we had Rika away in the Sonozaki house, we need some kind of explanation for the move. This is actually our largest bottleneck. Explanation? Isn't it just a matter of transporting her and keeping her? If we move her suddenly, our enemy will be wondering what happened and start getting suspicious. We've been carrying things out in secret thus far, so why tempt them into going into high alert? If that happens, all that trouble would have been for nothing. As usual, Mion was calmly and rationally thinking forward. Since I tended to be more forceful, I was thankful to have her as staff officer. Explanation, huh? How about we say she got sick at the festival, so she's resting at home? I realised pretty quickly that there's nobody in my house. That room is under constant surveillance from around. Then I'll go back to the house. You can say that I'm staying there to take care of Rika. Okay. Toko knows her whereabouts, and I'll make her a target. So far, the people here are the only ones who even know that Toko's woken up, so we shouldn't move her yet. Then how about we get the coaches help to establish a cover story that Rika was admitted here? Then we can hide Rika away at the Sonozaki house. Fortunately, it's easy to verify if a person's been hospitalized. It's difficult to forge. If they find out that she's not here, the Sonozaki house is the first place. Too risky. Not to make it look like a person is in a place where nobody is. But it's simple to make it look like someone present isn't actually there. There are plenty of places to hide. Probably a cynical reference, Toshi. Coach drooped his shoulders when he read it. Don't be so harsh, Shion. And about Takano. Wait, there's no reason for me to revert. Akasaka is currently investigating Takano to find the mastermind pulling the strings. Chauffeur, there's a promise Takano. If we could grab that person by the tail, then the enemy's supplies will. The enemy won't be able to take action if we cut off their support from headquarters. Then we win. But is that really okay? What if Takano continues with the plan even after we identify the mastermind? Takano can only take action according to the emergency manual as long as the mastermind's authority is acknowledged. So if we can publicly expose the mastermind's conspiracy, the implementation of the emergency manual will be recognized as a barbaric act that simply can't be carried. That's something Takano simply can't do, even if her motivation is to justify. But luckily, that wonderful man remembers his promise from 5 years ago and came here to help. Reina might be a little jealous. It doesn't suit my taste, but I do feel a bit envious. It's not like that with Akasaka. Plus, he belongs to some secret organization of the Public Security Bureau of the Tokyo MPD. He's incredibly reliable. I was totally mesmerized as soon as he mentioned that organization. It seems that Akasaka's role in this operation is to be the backbone for an investigation, so we'll have to set him aside when it comes to Rika's defense. I've got my window open, because of course I do. When do I ever not have windows open? And I can smell wood fire, one of my favourite smells ever, coming in from outside. And it smells very, very good. Rika's defense. Top priority at the moment is Tomitake, who is still unaccounted for. I think the possibility that he was killed is low. If Tomitake were dead, he would have been discovered as the victim of the curse instead of Tepe. I can't actually remember what happened to Tomitake. Well, when was Tepe killed? Mastermind was probably trying to draw attention to Hinamizawa syndrome. It's like saying these symptoms result in death. By making the villagers think it's due to the curse, it serves as a warning to keep them from fleeing the village. Plus, fear and unrest make it far easier for the instigators to psychologically exploit people. Maybe there's need to manipulate the behaviour of the villagers after offering Rika as a sacrifice. But they call containment. Why else would Takano's fake corpse be so readily found? Because she wants to disappear. And back to the original topic. Tomitake is still alive. Any information he might have obtained could huge impact of putting together the big picture. What's more, he's the only one who can call in the bloodhounds and suppress the enemy. In other words, Tomitake's safety is the line that divides the battlefield. It's strange to think that terrible cameraman, Old Man Tomitake, is the key player who can decide our fate. Still, I don't mean to be overly pessimistic, but I don't think we should rely on his support. In an abundance of caution, I think it'd be best to have other options on hand. Do we have any other weapons at our disposal? The only other person we can rely on might be Oishi. Who else could accept an explanation like that? Incidentally, I explained the situation to him here last night. Even though Akasaka was willing to fall, Oishi still seemed conflicted. That's only natural. Oishi was suddenly informed of the truth that completely contradicted his long-standing belief. It will take time to make sense of it. Also, Tomitake was doing undercover work from the inside, so maybe he has traces of that left somewhere. Just in case something were to happen. Can't say I expect much on that end, but I do think it's worth investigating. I had a thought earlier, and I've now completely forgotten it. Oh yes, why Teppei was killed. I think part of me thinks that Teppei was killed because purely because of Takano's bloodlust and desire for killing. I don't know if she had a reason. I think it's a lot like with Rina Mamiya, where she probably captured / incapacitated him and then was like, great, I'll use them for my plans. Although Rina was disappeared. As far as I can tell / remember. That's right. Any experienced intelligence agent would prepare an emergency contact scheme in the event of unforeseen circumstances. Perhaps Tomitake left some clues behind at his lodging facility? But if an enemy was suspicious of him, wouldn't that be the first place they'd search? He must have realised that, so I don't think he'd leave anything important there. For now, let's try to think of a strategy that doesn't depend on it. Irie, can you think of any other way? Then we all turned our eyes towards the coat, who'd been silent all this time. However, he just shook his head apologetically. I'm sorry, I left all contact with Tokyo in the hands of Tomitake and Takano, so there's little I can do there. While it's true that all the clinic staff are out today, it's best to think that most of them are loyal to me. I intend to do everything in my power to help you. I'm ashamed to admit that it doesn't amount to much. He looked terribly downhearted after, but I was thankful to have anyone from it. And this man is going through the hardest time trying to make sure everything ends well. This isn't the time to be asking the impossible of him. In that case, it seems that Akasaka's contributions are critical. Till then, we'll have to do as much as we can to evade our enemies. Let's take a passive approach. It's reassuring to rely on him, but it's also dangerous. It's still not clear how far out the deadline is. We'll have to think of another angle of it. Is there any sort of attack that would support him with his investigation? Let's see. Could set some sort of trap, grab them by the tail, and find some proof that the mastermind couldn't escape from it. It's the ultimate trap situation. If their objective is me, then why don't I act as bait for the trap? It's dangerous, but I'm the target, so they'll have no choice but to. It's a pretty risky move. But it's true that Takano's pursuit of Rika could be the edge we need to get some major evidence. If she were to deliberately show up, make a commotion, and then make a getaway, I think we can expect at least a few interesting results. This is where the mountains being behind Satoko's house come in handy. Well, if we were to flee through there, it certainly would give our pursuers a hard time. Satoko's beaming grin was one thing we could rely on. At a time like this. It was exactly what we needed to see. Now this is really getting interesting. But I think that'll be our final move. If we retreat to the mountains, it'll turn into siege warfare. The situation will change significantly. I think that should only be used as a true last resort. That's true. Traps in the mountains are extremely effective as a defensive measure, but they're exclusively for defense. That's entirely different from a proper attack on our enemies. The mountain siege will be our final trump card. Truly a last resort. Only after the enemies have attacked my house do we have to abandon its base of operation. Incidentally, there's a tunnel hidden in my basement that leads to a well in the mountain. This is getting more and more interesting. The enemy is a mysterious organization, we've got a secret base for covert ops, and there's even a secret underground tunnel. Gets you fired up, even if... Anyway, it seems the plans are starting to get more firm. We're putting in so much effort, so could there be a more effective plan? I gave a big nod in response to Shion's. Wanted another idea. All of our plans up until this point were rather defensive. A more aggressive plan would be perfect for someone like me. There's gotta be a way to deal a blow heavy enough to shut the conspiracy down. Is there a method like that? I'm sure of it. We're not as powerless as you think, Rika. We have a trump card of our own. Okie doke, we're going to try and get through 3 chapters today. Then we'll do 4 chapters week after next week, and then we'll do good ending and all the bad endings week after next, because on the 12th I probably won't stream on account of flying out the next day. We have a trump card of our own. We have a key person who needs in our custody. You, Rika. That'll be an important trump card. But that doesn't mean I'm opposed to using Rika for a trap. I mean I'm opposed to using Rika as Benny for a trap. Indeed. The mere fact that we have the Queen Carrier in our possession gives us a major advantage. What is our objective? Killing Rika, activating the emergency, annihilating the village, and then using that for a faction war within their organisation. Right? That's right. Rika's like a bomb that could blow everything away. That's right. They want to make a huge ordeal out of setting that bomb off and then getting something from the fallout. So the condition for our victory is that the bomb doesn't explode. That's not a very ideal situation, is it? Indeed. We have to constantly keep her protected, but the other side immediately wins if they manage to kill her. It's like a game of soccer where only one side of the field has a goal. It's more unless we can get a read on their attack patterns beforehand. Even if we manage to repel an attack, it could leave us open for a follow-up. We're exclusively focused on defense. We'll be weak after the first attack, susceptible to a second or third wave. Mion crossed her arms like she was thinking, but the next moment, it'll be alright as long as you're there. So lead on. You should be able to find the way to protect. I see. That's it. Shion? Something wrong? No, not really. Everyone, please listen. I have a good idea. After a little bit of thinking, Shion raised her head and said that. Coach, call the police right away. Tell them some thug just broke into the clinic armed with a gun. Shion? Hold on, you mean... Mion was surprised and quickly interrupted. Shion remained complete. I'm sorry, Rika. Would you mind dying? Then you're done. 10 minutes after receiving a 911 call from the clinic, 2 police cars pulled up to the entrance of the clinic and the policeman inside jumped out at once like it was a dance. Then Oishi came following behind them. His face swapped and his eyebrows stood up in shock. Surrounded by police officers who'd just entered, Mion and I were holding Shion down on the floor of the waiting room. She rampaged with a bloodthirsty look in her eyes. I'm going to say on account of it being a change in scene, but... No. Get off me, get off me! Kill you all! Hey, what happened to you? Come on, that's enough, Shion. When are you going to stop doubting the songs after that? Mion and I both had cuts on our arms and faces, and struggled to hold her down. When some of the police officers who were watching us rushed over to help, Shion fought even harder to escape our grip. But she finally succumbed to the additional force supplied by the adults, and looked completely exhausted as she was literally pinned down on the floor. Shion Samazaki was caught red-handed. You were under arrest for physical assault and obstruction of government duties. An ego. I'm criminal than all criminals. Director here has Satoshi. Satoshi. You will go to hell. And even as the handcuffs were clamped on her, she continued screaming and cursing at the coach, standing in the back of the ring. Oishi looked stunned as he watched the situation unfold. But then he came to his senses, and he looked directly at me as I lay on the floor and put a hand on my shoulder. Maibara, enough happened here. It's exactly what it looks like. When we came to visit Stoko, Shion was trying to shoot and kill the coach using a modified model gun. She said I'll send you to hell too, for what you've done to Satoshi. I have no idea what she's talking about. Mion's voice clogged up as she said that, then she buried her face in her chest while sobbing. Oishi was still stunned by the situation, but his eyes opened wide when he took a look around and noticed that a person who should have been there was strangely absent. Samazaki. Just now, Shion Samazaki said she sent you to hell too, didn't she? No way then, was there someone else? Yes. She said kidnapped Rika. If you don't confess, I'll hear it from her. Good lord. Uma, check the Furule household. Search for Rika Furude and gather any eyewitness information. Roger. The detective named Kumagai and several other officers dashed outside following Oishi's orders. Before long, I heard a car starting up and a siren ringing out. Oishi. Forensic staff were running around the clinic performing on-site investigation. Without even looking at them, Higurashi remorsefully collapsed his knees to the floor as he quietly muttered something. My. With this, when I came back to the clinic last night after smoking a cigarette, I thought I sent someone out there, but I assumed it was the cat because it was moving so swiftly. No way. That actually had been Shion Sonozaki. Even if my feelings were in disarray, I'm making mistakes like that and I'm really not fit to be a detective. I guess I was too slow in making my decision. Does this mean I can no longer respond to yesterday's discussion? It's just as they say, repentance always comes too late. Does this mean I've forever lost the opportunity to pursue the mysteries of the game? It's not over yet. Higurashi looked up when he heard Mion's soft but sharp and powerful voice. Then we casually looked at our surroundings before looking at him. We're on the verge of tears and quietly muttered what needed to be said. What's going on, you guys? After this, please speak with Shion during her interrogation. Beyond that, I leave everything to your judgment, Higurashi. If you think it's too dangerous, you can forget you heard any of this. Saying this is part of the game? Okay, understood. I realise it's painful to pry any further, so we'll speak again later. Higurashi got up and began walking away as though nothing had happened. And on the way out, he gave a faint nod before disappearing beyond the door. Keiichi. So if you heard a weird clunking there, it was me hitting my desk with my cup. Don't worry. Anyway, what is it? Really good at fake crying. Ow. Right beside me, Shion's head drooped beneath the jacket that was draped over her. Both her hands were cupped, and the gentle demeanour made her earlier rampage look like a lie. Still, will these kids go this far? Even though they're such trusting friends, will they make such a risky gamble? Let me just say, even though it's a modified toy gun, it still falls within the scope of the Firearms and Swords Control Act. Since you were caught in the act, under juvenile law, you could even end up going to prison if you make it worse. Shion remained silent. No, I could hear a slightly heavy breath as she turned away. Is that a smile on her face? See, if she's even prepared for that? This is a big deal. She really is an average Samson. For the time being, you're going to go through some slow interrogation. Let me hear what you have to say. Night had just arrived. You could see the day and night shift personnel switching like clock. Okinogi Gardeners had transformed into a forward base that completely defied its surface level appearance. Nonetheless, nothing had been happening so far. There were people playing with Hanafuda cards at the reception desk, and the room had a relaxed atmosphere. This is a base, so naturally dozing off on the job isn't, but that doesn't mean it's necessary to stay tense. Thanks to that, many people were biding their time by watching TV, playing cards when they weren't actively working. But in the middle of that, the phone suddenly began to ring. They'd moved the phone beside their seat so they'd be able to answer it quickly. This is Okinogi Gardeners. Thank you for your continued patronage. Yes. Huh? The man's appearance changed and he stood up straight. His knee banged into the desk as he did so. He didn't care. Takano rushed into the underground security room, the hair still a mess. Sorry to call you in, Major. Situation up. Is it true? Yes. It seems that at 6:15, Shion Sonozaki started suggesting an Okonomiya interrogation. Possible. What about all of her surveillance? Well, actually, this is unverified information, so what do you know? Last night, I was allegedly walking around in the night, fell into the same swamp as Tomitake. That's what happened to him. I completely forgot that he was being chased and he fell into the swamp. I remembered that he was being chased, but I couldn't remember what happened to him in the end. Several squad members spotted a young man desperately searching for her. Why didn't you report something so important? If anything happens to her before the plan is complete, it's all over. Even if it's unverified information, report it to me before declaring it a hoax. And hold on. How on earth does that tie into Shion Sonozaki killing her? Well, the people who witnessed the situation were quite shaken, and it seems that their grasp of the situation is insufficient, so this is just a guess, but there's a possibility that Shion Sonozaki herself invited her to the swamp, intending to throw her in. And so, Sonozaki family may be working behind the scenes to hide the truth about R's well-being from the village. And if that's the case, I think it gives a lot of credibility to the theory that R was killed. I do appreciate that they basically took the individual facts of Shion kidnapped Rika, Rika dead, question mark, and Rika in swamp, question mark, and created their own story from it. I also still really want to know what happened to Rika in RE Swampness. Because the way that I see it is sort of like there was I want to say a backup Rika, but because she died, but it wasn't the way that she was supposed to die, inverted commas, she sort of came back and woke up in her room, and that's why she had the trouble remembering what was going on. There's a very good chance I'm wrong there, I don't know. Takano was struck with the sensation like her whole body had frozen over. The killing of Rika Furude had already been determined. The corpse was speedily discovered at the Furude shrine the next day after tomorrow, and at that point they'd have to follow the emergency manual. That all began with killing Rika, without proper confirmation of her death. Proceeding with the plan would be completely meaningless. Of course, that would make carrying out the emergency manual and the ritual Tokyo HQ wanted would maybe even impossible. Then even if they could find the corpse, begin searching for R immediately. Report to me every single detail of Shion Sonozaki's testimony. Gather all the necessary background information before even the police can. Thoroughly search the swamp where R fell. Redirect the Jiro Tomitake search team to there. Of course, searching the swamp at this very moment using diving equipment. The swamp is deep and murky, so it will take a long time to turn anything up. We haven't found any personal belongings or other traces in the swamp, and it seems nobody in the village has heard anything about our going missing. They totally screwed up. Takano was completely overwhelmed with regret. Her original intent was to make Shion suspicious of the Sonozaki family, and thereby spread confusion to the police and other people around her. The more that Shion moved around, the more the police and the villagers diverted their attention to her, thus making their own activities easier. That was the purpose behind her climbing around. They never thought it would lead to her jumping around, but they underestimated her ability to do it. Did using her as a decoy completely backfire? And why isn't anyone making a fuss that she's gone? No big deal if she were a mere child, but she's the greatest symbol of the village. It wouldn't be unreasonable for even the entire village to note. The villagers will think that she's resting at home. In fact, some people reported that she passed out feeling ill immediately after her performance was over, and that she went to Dr. Irie for treatment. Then she went home with one of the adults afterwards and fell asleep. And how is her home? What is the meaning of this? No, we sent someone to check her immediately. Apparently she's not there. I guess the villagers don't know that she left her home and headed into the mountains. And why did Gar go into the mountains? That I don't know. But what? Forgive me being presumptuous, but we make the determination that Ara has already been killed by Shion Sonozaki. Is it okay to proceed as planned? Even if the information we get from the team points to that, I don't think there's any problem with continuing the operation. If she's already dead, we're all declaring that she's been killed based on circumstantial evidence, without even finding the corpse. Be serious. There's no way we can activate the emergency manual in such an uncertain situation. Unless we have confirmation of Rika's death, our village-wide blockade operation will be nothing more than a baseless mass slaughter. Takano wasn't simply feeling impatient due to all the chaotic events unfolding. More than anything, she was afraid. Losing the Queen Carrier didn't mean simply delaying their plan. The core tenet of her and her grandfather's research into Hinamizawa syndrome completely fall apart. They confirmed that the subject has been dead for over 40 years. If that were to happen, supporters in Tokyo who she depended on for funding and management would stir up trouble, and all of her plans would amount to nothing. Nevertheless, what would happen if they forcibly carried out the operation in? Nothing meaningful. It would be a major incident, but it wouldn't contribute at all to protecting the work that her grandfather. Basically, their ritual cannot begin without Rika Furude's sacrifice, and without that, everything her grandfather researched would be no more than a story buried in darkness. Excuse me, Major. There's a call from Nora in Tokyo. How much of this has she already got a wind of? While I'm on the phone, intensify the interrogation of Shion Sonozaki in Okonomiya Station ASAP. Find out where R is located and if she's still alive immediately. Already on it. People at Prefectural HQ have been contacted in order to share anything they find. In addition to that, all available staff members are searching the village, trying to determine her whereabouts. Don't just try. Do it. ASAP. Hurry up. Good morning, Mrs. Takano. Huh? No, wait. It's far along? It's not the case. Anyway, appropriate steps are being taken from here. Right, yes. We'll speak again later. An emergency call was placed to the Mountain Dog Base in Okinawa, known as Okinogi Gardeners. I understand. Contact me and the Major as soon as anyone at Okinomi Station learns anything. More importantly, are we sure that R fell into this wall? Some of the team did hear a loud splashing sound that's distinct from Jiro Tomitake, and a boy that we confirmed as a friend of hers was shouting that name as well. There's almost no doubt about it. And why didn't that brat tell the other villagers about it? Is there any possibility he knows something about our plan? Absolutely not. Our cover was perfect. There should be no reason the boy would even suspect our presence. Indeed, Okinogi himself thought the idea was ridiculous. Even if the boy named Keiichi Mibara had become had no motive for killing him. Something struck him. What if R had somehow sensed their secret maneuvers and shared information with them? I could hear engine and people outside. It's unlikely, but if there's any truth to it, then it put their men to shame. Commander, if you have any doubts, why don't we capture the boy immediately? I think it'd be pretty easy to abduct him in the current circumstances. But we have to be authorized by the Major. Plus, if we were to be kidnapped, the police would begin investigating the matter, and that would only add to our trouble. Anyway, just in case, monitor this boy's whereabouts and activities, and do everything you can to search the village. And, is there any possibility that R is being held outside the village? Aside from the Sonozaki house, I can't think of any other suitable location. Keep your thoughts more flexible. Explore the other possibility. Besides, how could someone take R out of the village in the middle of the day without anyone noticing? Okinogi's weather-beaten intuition was ringing a warning bell. What if she and Sonozaki had other reasons for searching? He was strangely troubled, as they planned to make the first move, yet they were now reacting to someone else's first move. It reminds me that MPD public security guy is talking. Have you identified where he's staying in Okinawa? Most likely. I'll double check. How about the search for First Lieutenant Tomitake? We still haven't found him yet? Not yet. Search the entire area around the swamp, but there's no signs of anything rising up, and we can't locate anything that may have sunken down. Wait, hold on. The Major got the phone call just now, right? From Tokyo. What about it? About MPD public security. Coming here. Shit, we're done for. Wait, now when? Hopefully, when I am back in England, I will be able to go back up to Nottingham and see my friends. Discover all the ways that being in America for a year has made me lose whatever affects from Northerners that I may have used to have had. Now I'm turning back at this point. What'll happen if this is much ado? Kumagai was trembling with excitement. How is she in Sonozaki? She's calmed down. Perhaps I should say she's completely drained of strength. She said she was thrown in jail in the past, so she was able to sleep comfortably. Yeah, I expect no less from a demon girl. She must have inherited that audacious bravado from her mother. But he was surprised. At the same time, he was impressed. No matter how much experience you may have had, nobody wants to be stuck in police custody. And yet, sacrificing yourself just to ensure your friend's safety? No. I'm going to check out the communication center. Please do everything you can to guard this place. Yep, I won't let anyone through, even if it kills me. My role will be to take care of Teppei Hojo's official autopsy. My honour is on the line, so I won't allow even the tiniest bit of deception to slip by. Kumagai, I'm relying on you here. Leave it to me. Kumagai gave a big grin and a thumbs up, then entered the interrogation room and closed the door. 48 hours in detention. Whether it was a coincidence or inevitable, that was the time limit of the battle started. Then, Oishi entered the floor of the communication center. All radios and telephones were being routed through here. The reception desk took calls during the daytime, but the communication center took over when the reception desk was closed. What's the situation? Right. There's one external call currently connected to the Criminal Affairs Division. Who's on the other end? Chief Inspector Otaka, Prefectural HQ. Otaka? Wow. Oishi smiles. Apparently, enemy had already begun taking action. The enemy had a spy within the police force, so they were already on the move. But he never thought that it would have been Otaka. Otaka was an unlikable man, but on the airs of intelligence, and a man in direct opposition to Oishi's first-hand field experience. They fought like cats and dogs, back on Oichis with the prefectural police. Seems the call is ended. Let's ask you. Hello? It's alright, it's me. How's it going? Everything's been handled as per the manual. That person is effectively the head. We're waiting for the chief to arrive. Should be coming here straight in the morning. Always wanting to make things flashy, huh? Can't even fight with his own hands. Things are finally getting serious. It smells like nasty and everything he said. Now I'm looking forward to seeing whatever comes next. Now then, things are getting interesting. What will come next? Come on, Nadine, it's over here. Come a little closer. Though that fool Otaka may come here eventually. Keep that in mind just in case. But there's still time there. As he whispered that, he checked the clock and tried to pick up the handset. Just then. Oh, by the way, Mr. Orishi. I received a bag from the Hinamizawa Town Council that someone apparently lost on the day of the festival. A bag? It's inside. Checked it earlier. There's apparently a camera and some kind of film. What should we do about it? Dun dun. Strongly suspect. That shit may be tum-tum-clings. Pardon me. Soothe. This is going to be our last chapter for now, just because I think it helps even things out a bit. Given the circumstances, I'll come right out and say it. I've seen it too. One of those dreams you spoke of, Rika. Huh? Really? Well, we don't have time for the whole story, so I'll leave out the details. But according to my memories of that time period, it's actually over 40 hours before Rika died, and yet none of the villagers had died. So we might be able to negate the emergency now, as long as we do something similar. Then what happened in this dream? It was a nightmare. A dream where I killed everyone. Wait. It must have been a dream. I remember it so clearly. I was completely obsessed with Satoshi and refused to trust anyone in the village, so I went out of control. In one of my favourite stories, and in my personal opinion, actually the best story of the lot, except for affected by movement from that side. My two favourite stories so far have been both of the Shion twin stories, and then the one where they all get together and kill Tefe and then kill each other. And I say favourite in terms of like they're the most horrifying, the most stomach-turning, the most stomach-wrenching to read about. But they are done so well. Like, I think this game's alright as a thriller, but I think it works much better as a horror game. I really do prefer the horror aspects of it. There we go. Oh, why have we got a notification? Oh, it's a campus message. The Canvas message is talking about the midterm that I had yesterday, which I was all worked up about, and then took me about half an hour. Just like having a 2-hour limit for it, because it was all multiple choice questions, and a lot of it was reference to stuff that I knew, even though I'm at least 2 lessons behind. The joys of asynchronous learning is sometimes you're really pumped and you do everything way in advance, and other times you're like, so floor. Completely obsessed with Satoshi and refused to trust anyone in the village, so I went completely out of control. First came Granny Oya, then Miyaki Miyoshi, then Rika, Satoko, Mion, and Keiichi. And in the end, I went completely mad and fell from my apartment. I died. It was a future I don't want to remember. Even now, I sometimes see it in my dreams. My whole body starts shaking, as if it comes flowing like a waterfall, and I'm overcome with a chilling fear. However, as now I realised, at that time, I'm certain that plenty of other people were still alive, even 48 hours after I killed Rika. There's something different. Yes, that's it. That's right. Before I confessed to Keiichi and Reina that I killed Rika, I hadn't told anyone about her murder. And ironically enough, that was the proof that enemies targeting Rika needed. That was the proof the enemies targeting Rika needed as proof of death in order to carry out their plan. Well, that's the rationale. The court's issued an arrest warrant for obstruction of government duties. Therefore, the suspect must be held at Okonomiya Station for 48 hours for information gathering. Rishi leaned his elbows on the table and peered at me as he said that. Of course, I realised he was just pulling my leg, so I didn't stop eating my katsu udon. I kept shamelessly chewing down large bites. Oh, I just had the thought that katsu curry would be so nice right now. I need to learn how to make my own katsu sauce, because a lot of the pre-made katsu sauces contain onions and garlic, and both of which I can't eat. Garlic I can manage, onions I absolutely not hack. But pre-made katsu sauce always has it. Sometimes it even has the massive chunks of onion, and then I'm like, well, this whole thing is poison because it also tastes of onion. Anyway, who decided that they'd serve katsu udon at this point in the interrogation? Well, I am hungry and it does taste pretty good, but it's a bit heavy for a midnight snack. What happened to the assault charge and the Sword and Firearms Control Act violation? You formally indicted me for those earlier. That. Actually, I just got a call from Dr. Irie. He told me you came to show him a modified toy gun that I accidentally fired due to a gunpowder malfunction. With the victim and witnesses testifying to that effect, there's no point even bringing it up with the courts. Fine, but that doesn't really matter to me. I'm prepared for this. Don't be stupid. The prosecutors can waive a charge of obstruction of government duties at their own discretion, but the other two are not nearly that easy to dismiss, you know? Having a mark on your criminal record is one thing, but I don't think you want to end up separated from your friends. It's nice of you to take that into consideration. I'm surprised. Well, you think I want to throw out the daughter of the Samazakis in jail and incur the wrath of that wrinkly old hag? But if it means protecting the life of the Furude family head, I'll do whatever it takes. Rishi lightly smiled as he said that. His expression was hard to read like always, but I couldn't sense any ill intent behind it. So what now? If you can get me a written record of what I asked for, I'll do my best to cooperate. This time we're completely in passive mode. After all, the other party is an unknown organisation and there are very few allies here. We can't make a move without solid evidence, so we're completely dependent on our information from the worker. My, power of the state is so unreliable. I'm ashamed to admit it. Anyway, aside from that, Rishi suddenly smiled and gave a signal to Detective Kumigai standing behind him. In response, he picked up a file on the desk near the entrance and sat it down in front of me. This is a photo of Hinamizawa? Yes. Actually, a bag was delivered to the lost and found at the assembly hall on the night of the festival, and this was developed from the film contained within, along with various other documents. Then you mean, it's just as you think. The lost bag definitely belongs to Jiro Tonpake, who is still unaccounted for. This is important material evidence. It's a miracle that it was delivered here. According to Oishi, the film is hidden under various other documents to disguise them. There are plenty of things related to Tokyo, in particular about the people providing funds and instructions to Miotsukushi and the routes they do so through. I had an informant deliver the documents to Akasaka last night. Those clever folks in Tokyo will probably consider pulling out of Hinamizawa in the next few days. Then what about Rika? Yes, she should be fine. However, there is one thing I'm worried about. Shion. Do you recognize this building? I seem to have forgotten, so I'm not sure where it's located. It is... the colour of the building looks familiar, and I feel like I've seen them out in the corner. What is it? Is this metal pipe with something written on it? Yeah, take a look. Yuma, are you able to magnify this spot here? Let's give it a try. Roger. Just then I heard a knock at the door, and when the door immediately swung open without waiting for a reply, an elderly man with grey hair and a beard came in just as Detective Kumigai headed out. Slow down, old-timer. At least wait for a reply before barging in. More on, there's no time for that. I have the results from Tepe's autopsy. There were no traces of any drugs in his bloodstream. What's that? That's all you have to report, you can tell me. Listen to the rest. Okay. Even though we didn't detect any drugs, we did find an injection mark. It wasn't damaged by the scratches. Considering the location of the mark and calculating backward from that point in time, it's unnatural that there's no residual reaction. Moreover, a single hair was found in the separating wound that clearly didn't belong to Tepe. The hair product coating is of a rather unique variety. At the very least, it's not one sold here in the village. Can you identify the assailant using? DNA testing still hasn't spread to Japan. But when it comes to this hair product, it's a totally different story. Oh, the 80s. I'm so sorry for that noise. I accidentally kicked my entire desk. Whoops. We're currently contacting manufacturers in order to identify the product. And if we can identify people who frequently use that product, it'll be a valuable clue. Nice work, old-timer. We can use that as an important reference to investigate Takano and her crew. Let's do it. Don't mention it. What's the deal with this shack in the quarry? Oh, that's it. This is in Higurashi. So you recognize this place, old-timer? Of course, I've spent plenty of time. More importantly, this writing here. You alright? I'm fine. Probably. I did the best I could to answer Satoko's muffled call from above me. I could hear the sound of the springs, but for now the only thing right before my eyes was the approaching sea. I guess she's not worried about the bottom of the bed falling. You are welcome to fall asleep, but please try not to sleep. If I hear anything, I may have to kick the bed to awaken you. Then if I hear anything, I'll kick you straight out of the bed. Think of it as a sort of con. Then I won't lose. I suddenly cut out. I cut off my voice and burst into laughter at that strong but panicked report from Satoko. Satoko was far, far more likely to adorably snore in her sleep. It's pretty much a guaranteed win for me, but I'll let her have the victory this time. Irie arranged for Satoko and I to be moved to a vacant exam room. I'm lying on a mat under Satoko's bed, hidden behind a box of medical supplies. Simply staying put at the scene of the attack. It was Shion's idea. When Irie heads over to give Oyo a medical exam later this evening, Satoko and I will go for a ride in his car and end up hidden away in the basement of his Nozaki. About 30 hours left. I looked at the clock tucked away under my arm and let outside. Just a little over a day. The rotation of the second-hand hot sauce left. I'll probably spend the slowest time period of my life living in here. Plus work. Still feeling anxious and uneasy. I tried in the past to evade my enemy's attack by fighting over magic. Of course that never succeeded. Although this is the first time I've hidden myself with the help of the club member, though I'm interested in seeing how it plays out. Perhaps I should say that I'm full of anticipation. In addition to the anxiety and fear I felt thus far, oddly enough, I was feeling a little excited. Just then, you listen to me for a moment. Satoko had been quiet for a while, but she suddenly spoke up. What's going on? Her tone was a little firmer than before, something strange about it. What is it, Satoko? Rika, I want to talk to you about the incident 3 years ago. Satoko, it's best that you forget that. No, please listen. I've had dreams about that many times, over and over again, and I finally remembered. Those flashback whites hurt my eye. That day, my mum, my stepdad and I went on a drive. I really hated it, because it was scary and a little strange how he looked at me and tried to fight. I'd always thought there was something two-faced about me. But deep in my heart I decided I'd never get along. But I was too weak to speak up. Mum took his masquerade of kindness seriously. He was completely absorbed. All I could do was feel irritation and regret. Mum was being deceived. It was only a matter of time before they'd fight and stop getting along. Then she'd feel sad when they broke up. So I did all kinds of things to harass him, hoping to get rid of him. That would surely cause his arm to peel off. I thought Mum would wake up when she saw that, because that was how it always worked. But that man wasn't like me. Rather than getting angry, he always got worried and sad. He was always talking to Mum about me at night. That made me feel uncomfortable. Surely this man was planning something. He was going to get Mum on his side and convince her I'm a burden and drive me out of this house. No, maybe he'll even kill me and make it look like an accident or something. I was always thinking thoughts like that. But let's go for a drive and see the river together. When he invited me by saying that, I was worried he was going to push me off the cliff, so I decided to stay in the car. And then when I was left all alone in the car, suddenly I started feeling somehow lonely, sad and terrified. Maybe I really am the burden. And maybe the two of them are using the town away from me to plot how to kill me. As I saw that, I heard an awful sound ringing in the back of my ears, and my whole body was crawling like it was covered in blood. When I noticed that, I stepped out of the car from the shadows. Sorry. From the shadows, I peered out at the two people standing by the cliff. Then... Is that alright, dear? Seems he came home late again yesterday. Oh, of course. The supporters will never get anywhere without an intermediary. If I back down, everyone will cower at the old lady Summersaki's wrath. Such a disadvantageous role to be in. Well, I'm used to being hated. Pretty rare for someone to like a tough-looking, loudmouth person like me. Felt the same way at first. I'll never forget how frightened you looked when we first met. He excitedly laughed and shook his large body. But he suddenly stopped smiling as though he'd remembered something, sighed while drinking. Thanks to that, I felt sorry for Stoke. Stoker's mother gently placed a hand on the shoulders beside her. His large field crumpled and his shoulders were drooping excessively low. I'd had a wife and a cute kid. That was my dream. I'd almost given up, but I'm so happy to have finally obtained all of it. I'm ecstatic. That's probably why I misunderstood so many things about Stoker. She was not bad girl. I was the one who was in. Don't say that. Thus, I've made things harder for them, fighting against Lady Aria. Even I understand how coldly the villagers are treating them. I'm standing up on behalf of the supporters, so I can't back down. It'll be alright. The two of them are strong. I'm sure they'll understand one day. Toko couldn't see his face. Even so, she could tell by the sound of his voice. Toko's stepfather was crying. He was the woman. Whenever she tried reaching out, whenever she tried speaking gently, it was God on her back, treated her so harshly. I never even thought about how much. No amount of applause enough for her. So once we get a government subsidy and move, I want to do as much as I can to make amends. We need to do the best we can to make them. And the two of them excitedly planned out various things in the future. Needless to say, all of them were about Toko and Stoke. Getting a new house and furnishing them with rooms for them. Buying a bunch of cute stuffed animals to fill Satoko's room. Finding a neighborhood baseball team for Satoshi to join. And going out to play catch with him on days off. Putting a nice big colour TV in the living room. Having them call over lots of friends and watch the latest game on TV together. Replacing both of their beat-up old bikes, maybe even with those newer bodies, with changeable gears. The mother and stepfather were firmly divided on whether or not the two of them should go to cram school, but even that discussion was full of love for both of them. Suddenly, she noticed teardrops trickling to the ground. Satoko then realized that she was crying. Why'd she been treating these people so terribly? They'd been so kind to her. She did so many awful things, told so many terrible lies, and yet these people have been treating her like a daughter. Sorry. Toko wiped away her overflowing tears and looked up to face them once again. Seeing the two of them happily discussing a vibrant future must have been enough to brighten her, because Satoko could feel the darkness. Let's trust them. Mum and that man, I mean my stepdad. Pretend you didn't hear anything. Now let's cheerfully jump into their comforting arms. Will you be surprised? Will they be able to catch me? Still anxious, still a little scared. But I've decided. I decided to believe in the love that the two of them feel. With those thoughts in mind, Satoko ran towards the two of them with an extraordinarily huge smile. I don't quite remember how much time passed after, but I realized I was laying on the ground. When I looked up, I saw a mercilessly broken railing. Mum and my stepdad were nowhere. I couldn't see them anywhere. It was too much to handle, so I lost my voice. My heart was throbbing and I kept taking deep breaths over and over to keep my breathing under control. At last, I just barely managed to suppress the shock and surprise in my heart. Stoke, is that really true? To be honest, I wasn't confident in it up until now. I always hated my stepdad. That was an outright lie, though. The truth is I simply killed the two of them, isn't it? But I clearly remember the final looks on their faces. They were pushing me back as hard as they could, trying to keep me from falling with them. And then the two of them realized I was safe. They both smiled. I could hear Satoko weeping on the side of the bed. I wanted to get up there and stand beside her right away. I wanted to pat her head to comfort, tell her that it was okay. However, fortunately, this was neither the time nor place. Toko, that's enough. Really, it's okay now, isn't it? No, Rika. Maybe this is just a lie I constructed from my desire to run away. But before I woke up, a voice in my dream spoke to me. Really? Yeah. Please don't cry. Because the two of them were happy to fight for you until the end. This word saved me. All the sins I kept locked in my memory all this time were forgiven. Satoko's voice was full of tears, but still had a strong, dignified sound to it. I think now, it was probably your voice, Rika. So, I'll give everything I have to protect you. That's how I can make amends for you giving me a reason to live. So from now on, please let me continue to help you. Stop. Who could say no after hearing that? Once again, I felt proud to have this cute, brightly shining little girl as a friend. Toko, I'm your friend. And I'm truly, truly glad to have you. Feel the same way, Rika? I felt warm tears spill up my eyes as I clenched my fist. 29 hours left. No doubt about it. I'll definitely endure them. And I'll grab hold of that happy future with the help of my wonderful friend. Thanks for all your hard work. Here's it from this time. This time it's our chief. They're getting bolder and bolder. But they're no match for me. Show them the power of a man with dedication. Anyway, it's convenient that the chief is busy playing golf with the association today. If he'd come here directly, things would have gotten a bit more heated. Not sure if a phone call from the golf course counts as working. Utaka probably wanted to get the chief on board. He must be furious. If the indirect attack didn't work, then the next step must be a direct attack. Can that bastard Otaka get in? The chief can't step up, he'll have to get in on his own. It's already 8:30. About time for the front desk to open. The night was already over. It was unquestionably morning. The chorus of the cicadas had already begun. Based on that alone, you could easily mistake today as a perfectly normal day. One of the reasons I've been stopping streams a bit earlier, especially these streams where I'm reading the whole time, is that my voice gets sore very easily. And I do have like a cold drink to help with that. But it doesn't always help, you know. I have been warned of this though. I've been warned that the major thing that happens when your voice drops is that you get sore throats. But today wasn't just any day. Oishi and company were already tugging at the tail of a huge conspiracy. Given Otaka's disposition, he's probably going to come over with no hesitation and puff his chest. Let me check something. Bear with me. The kind of guy that thinks that he alone can dispense justice. Okay, let's go with the coastline defense strategy. Yuma, I need you to handle the interrogation room. We finished developing the photos? Just a little longer. Oh, this came just now. Here you go. Happy news for me. Okay, the front desk would be open soon. The clerks were inside the counter area, just waiting for the opening chime to ring out. Did he have to get involved with those detestable bastards this early in the morning? He wished they were at least gross. I wish he had a critical role. He managed to just take Shion Samazaki to prefectural policing. It would be a heavy blow to her future, even if she didn't say anything. Plus Rika Furude's whereabouts and the certain nature of her life or death were key elements of the operation. They could keep the enemy busy for just a minute, just a second, and Akasaka's team could grab hold of their slightly protruding tail. But if the enemy were able to learn that Rika was still alive, they're able to grab hold of her tail. The enemy would be able to reassemble their plan. It would restore the credibility of the Alphabet Project, and the enemies on the verge of abandoning the operation would come back with a perfectly executed plan. It seems that Rika Furude was able to overcome this conspiracy with miraculous intent. But it's both a miracle and a calamity. A miracle is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If you expect one to happen, you're doomed to failure. So there won't be a next time. They can't defeat the enemy here. They'll never win. It would deal serious damage to them internally. Ultimately, a draw would lead to victory for the enemy. We have to expose the enemy by any means necessary, then have Akasaka deal them a heavy blow with his own hands and take them down. No matter how things play out, this incident could never become public knowledge. But there are people here who can't be saved unless we devote ourselves, right here and now. The way things are now, this is ostensibly a violation of duties. This is exactly the sort of situation where Detective Soul burns brighter. That's right. My mentor knocked me down and told me that on the day back when I was young. The automatic glass doors opened and closed on the right. And despite the blistering morning heat, dressed in a suit wall still. He had 2 henchmen with him, as usual, wanted to conduct himself like he was in charge. Yeah, good morning, Otto. Good morning, Mr. Oichi. Please stop addressing me with a I'm no longer in a position where someone like yourself can address me that. Don't say that, Otaka. Don't we share the bond of friends who sit around the mahjong table together? Otaka's face slightly warped. He used to be a strong mahjong player, but I wish he had beaten him at it so many times in front of so many other people that it had taken a toll on him. I'd like to rekindle our old friendship, but I have urgent business to take care of today, so forgive my rudeness. Don't say that. Remember that kendo tournament? When you forgot to write out all those certificates? You cried and begged until I promised to help. It's greatly written for you backstage so they're able to properly carry out the award ceremony run. I do appreciate you doing that, but that's not relevant, mate. So you thank me for that? How rude of me. Can't say I recall hearing you say so before. Prefectural police said I begged you to let me write, so you finally relented, remember? The lettering on the certificates wasn't very clear, so the department head had to ask you what they said, right? Well, I wonder about that. Maybe someone just made a misunderstanding? Don't say such things already. Prefectural Police HQ may be your island, but unfortunately this is Okonomiya Station. You can't just do as you please here. And what do you mean by that, Oichi? I don't know what you came here for, but your island is in Gogoro, not Okonomiya. So please, kindly withdraw from me. On whose authority? What authority do you have here? I'm currently investigating a confidential case back at Prefectural HQ. I hear there's a key witness here relevant to that. Then contact us on the phone. Okonomiya is a modest town, not the kind of place you march into dressed in a custom-tailored suit. See, whether you should have received an order from the chief to hand the suspect over to Prefectural HQ. Has an elite like myself not heard the principle of one crime, one arrest, one detention? An arrest warrant has been issued against the suspect for obstruction of government duties, and we are currently carrying out an investigation based on that. It's within our authority to keep her detained until I end our jurisdiction for up to 48 hours until she can face prosecution, yes? Then please indict her immediately and send her to prosecution. Then please indict her immediately and send her to prosecution. I'd like to, but the suspect is being particularly... We can't get a confession out of her if she insists on keeping silent. Then let us meet with her for our own investigation. No can do. Huh? I'm in charge of a confidential case at Prefectural HQ, and... If that's the truth, then I won't doubt your detective soul. Detective soul is a noble thing. True that nobody would be in this business if they weren't making a salary. But a detective can't carry out their duties without a soul measured by more than just that. If you have that soul within, step aside right here. Flames of rage began burning within Oichi's eyes, and Otaka looked at them. Many terrible memories had long since forgotten came. He didn't want to be distracted by Oishi's barking. He couldn't hide the deep gulp he immediately reacted with. Then please step aside. I too came here with a detective soul. Please let me through. And try pushing me away with that detective soul of yours. Come on. What did you say? Your detective soul is stronger than mine. You should have no trouble getting by. Come on. Give it a try. He made it clear that he didn't want anyone passing by. What an absurd thing to say. Otaka became confused while thinking that to himself. He was an elite member of prefectural headquarters. He had so much credibility based on his academic background and performance reviews. He believed he'd been accumulating that up until today. But this man named Oishi didn't acknowledge it at all and made no effort to show him respect. He was the lowest type of savage brute, trying to protect his pride by refusing to recognize his superiors. Strange, even back when he was at prefectural HQ. How could everyone believe in what this guy had to say? How could they respect a man like that? How could they value a man like that higher than me? You don't have the right to make decisions regarding an investigation. Do you think you can tell a chief inspector what to do with a suspect in detention? Then you'll have to negotiate with our own chief inspector, Mitsuda. He was the one granted authority over this investigation. But he's currently out on another investigation. Then call him back immediately. Call him back? Well, I could. He may be a timid man, but he still has very strong convictions. Making a big mistake if you think he'll be easily threatened by someone with the same rank as him. Got it? Move. If you don't, I can accuse you of interfering with an investigation. What kind of investigation? If you tell me, I'll help you. Didn't you hear me? It's classified. I can't talk about it to someone like you. Let's see. Well, if you can't tell me everything, then tell me one thing instead. What do you have resting on your shoulders? My shoulder? What are you talking about? I have something on my shoulders. The fate of 2,000 villagers rests there. To let you through, there's 2,000 villagers. Their relatives as well. They'll all be very sad. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? I have no idea what you're on about. Okay, I'll tell you. Your boss is planning something terrifying. I bet you haven't thought it through that far, but it's a conspiracy that will make thousands of people unhappy. That conspiracy is about to crumble, and that's why they called you in from home and ordered you to investigate. I don't know how much you're getting paid for this, but if that's more important than your policeman's spirit... I wish you stopped talking there, but his eyes continued to speak after that. Depending on his response, this could result in use of force, or violent disciplinary action. This man was enough of an outlaw to do it. What in the world are you talking about? Anyway, please just let me through. Wait a minute, I'm not done yet. As Otaka tried to walk by, Oishi grabbed him by the arm. Otaka tried to make him let go, but Oishi was just too strong. Be calm, Oishi. I'm not putting that much strength into it. You have a policeman's spirit, they shouldn't stop you. With that, you should be able to knock me down easily. But you can't even get my hand off your arm. Do you know why? Get off of me. Because you don't have a policeman's spirit. Oishi let go of his shoulder, and Otaka tumbled onto the floor, sliding for more than 2 meters. What is this? This is interference with an investigation. This is interference with the government official executing his duties. Assault! Arrest him immediately. Otaka ordered his 2 colleagues around, but they didn't know what to do. Oishi was also a policeman, and obviously there was something more going on between them. Besides, they could sense one thing. Their instincts were telling them that Oishi was far stronger than them. They were no match at all. What's going on, Oishi? Some officers were gathering in the lobby. They all looked puzzled. Nothing much. This greenhorn from the prefectural headquarters demanded something selfish, so I taught him a lesson. The officers alternately looked between Oishi and Otaka. They knew something was going on, but they didn't know the circumstances, so they didn't know which one to stop. Oishi was respected by the policemen of the Okonomiya station. Everyone respected him. If Oishi said Otaka was being selfish, then he must be at fault. Oishi was generally seen as sensible. All of them thought he would only do this in a public place, like a lobby, if it was something major. Otaka was feeling humiliated to get such attention. He stood up calmly, hiding his humiliation with anger. I see. I understand your position. But I'm not here on a child's errand either. I like your spirit. I'm ready to go if you are. Bring it on, Queen. That's all you got? So that's your policeman's spirit? I have 2,000 Hinamizawa villagers resting on my shoulders. The lives of 2,000 people in my jurisdiction depend on me. Why don't you tackle me with a spirit that's strong enough to knock down 2,000 people? It's like watching a match between a sumo wrestler and a small child. No matter how many times Otaka tried to tackle Oishi, he simply crumpled against him. Oishi stood firm as if his feet were rooted to the earth. By the 3rd time Otaka tumbled to the floor, he finally realized he'd been provoked. He caught his breath and fixed his hair. Guess I got carried away. Well, it was my mistake for assuming I could say the brute like yourself through respectable ones. For the time being, and in consideration for our friendship, I'll allow you to save face here. Is that so? Can't say I even noticed. I have to say I'm surprised. You feeling any sort of gratitude is about as likely as us getting a heavy snowstorm tomorrow. You know what I mean? But it doesn't matter how much you resist. As long as you're a police officer, you can't defy formal reprimand or direct orders from your superiors. I came here on orders from the Department Chief of Criminal Affairs. You understand what that means, don't you? Indeed, if an order comes in from the Department Chief, the lower ranked detectives like ourselves have no choice but to quietly comply. Assuming that's the case, of course. You have any paperwork to prove that you're acting on the Department Chief's orders? Of course. Here, take a good look at this. Otaka pulled a piece of paper out of his pocket as he said that, then spread it out and arrogantly held it up to Higurashi. He was glad to have brought it up with the Department Chief as a precaution. Otaka quietly muttered to himself and confidently laughed. The Department Chief was an upperclassman who attended the same college as him, so he was an enthusiastic supporter. Though he was a Deputy Chief Inspector, that gave him a lot of power he could wield with the Chief's backing. However, Otaka had his pride to worry, so he only wanted to use this insurance policy in the worst case scenario. Although this sort of imperial standard is more effective against senseless foes like this. long as he came prepared, he had nothing to worry about. See, so you got a stamp note written by the department chief, stating his cooperation in this investigation. There's no way I can go against that. Oh, great. As long as you understand that. Now please escort me to Shion Summer's Upward and make preparations for her transfer. All further interrogation will be conducted in Goldberg. Then allow me to step in from an even higher authority. Oh, is she? Huh? Oh. Just then, a woman dressed in a suit came walking over from behind Otaka, in a stuttering gait with her own crutch. Wishi was pretending to keep calm while racking his brain, thinking of a way out, but he had a huge smile on his face as soon as he saw her, realizing that he had Tomoe, I've been waiting for you. Nice timing. Come now, Wishi. Didn't I tell you to stop calling me Tomoe while I'm on the job? Seriously, calling a wounded person into a place like this? Yeah, terribly sorry about that. And how are your injuries? Can't you tell just looking? You suddenly called me and made a ridiculous, selfish request. So I'll be sure to pay you back for this later, got it? What's with you? Well, we're in the middle of an important discussion. Chat later. Spirit dampened, and suddenly he raised his hand to drive Tomoe away. She furrowed her eyebrows for a moment at his pompous attitude, but quickly shed the expression and raised a hand into a salute. I'm the Chief of Media Relations at the National Police Agency's Public Relations Department, Chief Inspector Minami. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Police Agency? What on earth is someone from Public Relations doing here? This isn't some TV station, you know? Yes, I understand, at least that much. Detective Wishi, allow me to deliver a message on behalf of the Secretariat, Commissioner of the National Police Agency. Suspect currently in your custody has just become a key witness in a major, wide-area investigation, so she will now be taken under the jurisdiction of the National Police Agency. Please work towards the prompt transfer of any relevant investigation materials. Thank you for your cooperation. The current detention period at this facility will cease at 9 PM today, whereupon she will be transferred to the primary location for this investigation, the Aichi Prefectural Police Headquarters. This notice was issued under the authority of the Chief Cabinet Secretary of the National Police Agency. Do you have any objections, Detective Oishi? It's a direct order from the big shots at the NPA. There's no way I can refuse. Fortunately, that's a pretty extreme situation, so I'll have to quietly play along. Hold on. I'd already made an earlier suspect transfer. No, this order takes precedence. The order was annulled the moment this order was issued. Please comply with orders given by your superiors in the police force. That is all. Now run home with your tail between your legs, you good for nothing ruffian. So excited to do the advanced story if this is what Tomoe is like. I love her already. You intend to write your saber any further? I'll have you and your department chief summoned for inquisition at the MPA. Got it? Otaka let out a sharp cry that you couldn't imagine from a man of his stature. He wore a terrified expression like he was completely devoured as he made his way out of the facility. After watching him head out, Tomoe coughed and her face turned red, then she bowed her head and said, "My apologies." I went a little berserk there. Guys like that really set me off. Sorry. Oh no, don't worry about it. Thanks to that, you saved me the trouble of beating him myself. Sorry for asking something unreasonable. And about your injuries, are you sure that you're okay? I'm fine. There's still plenty of favours I need to pay you back, Oishi. So please rely on me at times like this. Tomoe cheerfully smiled as she said, "In the timing, it wasn't just an unreasonable cry. It was absolutely insane. He would have been deeply appreciative if she delivered this notice much later this evening. But the fact that she delivered it so early in the morning meant she rushed to take care of it. He was truly grateful for her taking the trouble to do it. Thus, I wish she was seriously at his wit's end when he received that order from the doctor. He thought it best that it would have come from the marriage section chief. Without her, they definitely would have taken Shion Summer's. Also, the autopsy results and related materials pertaining to that burned corpse have been transmitted to you via fax and mail, obviously. The fact, a subordinate of mine found a major clue indicating the body didn't commit. Is that so? Forensics of the dental treatment. True, the victim had dental work done a few months ago, the records from a dentist man. However, when a nurse at the reception desk was shown a photo, they confirmed it was someone different from the person they knew as Takano. What does that mean? It's a simple trick using an insurance card. There's no photo on an insurance card. If you present one, you can use it as if it were your own without problems. The person who received treatment under Takano's name was in fact the burned victim. I see. In which case, her alibi of being already dead completely fell apart. So depending on the results from the old man and forensics, I should be able to issue an arrest warrant against Miotsukushi. Thank you very much, Tomoe. I think we'll be able to manage with this. Glad to be of help. Alright, I'll be off then. Oh, Oishi? Yes? What is it? Some religious figure once said those he believed will be saved. Now I can confidently say that that's the truth. So please do your best. I'm praying that your wish comes true. Thanks, Tomoe. Then Tomoe left Okuniya Station in the car driven by a fellow detective. Oishi remained standing still for a while after she disappeared, feeling flooded with emotion. Now then, I guess I should go back to the interrogation. Oh. As Oishi stretched his body out and took a deep breath, he turned his eyes and suddenly noticed a long-awaited guest coming in through the entrance. Oh, Akazaka! I'm waiting for you. Sorry I'm late. So about the matter. Thanks to that, motions are in place. Then Oishi casually guided Akazaka to another room. After confirming that nobody else was around, Akazaka moved in close and spoke. Thanks to a plea bargain, it seems a conclusion will be reached by tomorrow. Big movements were transpiring, so I was wondering what was happening internally. Then you mean the politician who was recently being covered on TV? Right, someone in that position with him. He'd certainly be able to put pressure on public security investigators. First, we thought we couldn't risk getting involved in a project related to a powerful future candidate for Prime Minister. But unsatisfied with that, he was trying to expand his power by taking money from the late politician who launched the project. Those ambitions ended up in an empty dream leading to being arrested. Those who were manipulating Miotsukushi were doing so with the intention of eliminating the opposition party. But now that the mastermind has been arrested, there's nothing inciting them to take that. Therefore, it's likely that the people backing them behind the scenes will cut off and fade away. In the near future, she and her compatriots will learn that their role is no longer relevant, and should cease any acts of violence. If that information gets released, Miotsukushi will learn that carrying out the plan would be useless, so she'd be forced to abandon it. In terms of public security, we were able to eliminate a politician with problematic foreign relations, so they'll have to tacitly accept self-preservation tactics. At least for this time, but Akazaka cynically smiled as he said, there was another person in public security performing a similar job, but there was something he didn't like there. Well, the details haven't been finalised yet. The deterrent won't be effective until tomorrow. Until then, we'll need to continue physically protecting. Youngsters are always working harder and faster than me. I wish he happily laughed and his stomach shook as he said that. As long as those kids are involved, the future of Hinamizawa will be secure. I wish he was nearly at retirement age. He was thinking that it was time for old soldiers to take their leave. But he still felt like all his hard work in Hinamizawa was worth it. Oishi. As they left the room, Kuma guy dashed over with a distraught look on his face. What's going on, Kuma? Shout too much out here, you could cause the public to panic. That's not important. Akasaka's here too. Perfect. Hurry, come with me. What are you guys doing? It happened so suddenly. An armed mountain dog squadron charged into the clinic with Okanoki at the forefront. It was daytime on a weekday. Naturally, there were several patients sitting in the waiting room, but they were all forced out with no regard for their anxiety or curiosity about the situation. And as they approached the door of the exam room, Irie stood up stunned and rushed to stand in front of them. Where are you going? I can't allow you to go any further dressed like that. Now. What are you doing? Okanoki called out his subordinates behind like he wanted them to move on an inanimate object rather than a person. 3 of them surrounded Irie on all sides and forcibly pushed him to the floor. This sort of violence is not permitted. Tell me, is Satoko Hojo here? Satoko had fallen asleep and I yawned at spending such a boring time. A commotion suddenly came from the hallway outside and I could hear a sound reminiscent of military boots hitting the floor. I thought I heard a faint scream, but the door wildly swung open before I could determine it came from there. From down here I could only see their feet. I could slightly make out the hem of a white coat right next to a set of military boots. The coat undoubtedly belonged to Irie, and the man who was trying to resist had to be. Satoko absolutely needs to remain rested. And why did you have to rush so many of our patients out here? Now. Okanoki's voice rang out with no regard for what Irie had said. Behind them, I heard the clatter of something being set up and then brought inside. It was a basic stretcher. You're insane? Where on earth are you planning to take her if you get her out of here? There's no need to answer that. Just following orders from above. If you have any complaints, direct it to them. Orders from above? Who on earth would that be? The Major. Pick it up with Major Takano. Miotsukushi said that without any hesitation. Irie froze and looked terrified. Major Takano? That's ridiculous. You yourself reported that she died just yesterday. Don't bother feigning ignorance, Lieutenant. What? Director, you've been suspected of spying. If you make another attempt to get in my way, it'll be seen as an act of treason. Got it? Spying? Me? On what grounds? Information regarding Rika Furude's disappearance leaked to Tokyo HQ points directly to you. I said you were poisoning hiding in the shadows, but I let your absent-minded appearance fool me. Now, take her away. As he said that, 4 men rushed to the bed while pulling the stretcher. However, Irie continued resisting by standing in front of the men with his back towards the Tokyo window. What do you plan to do after taking her? What crime did this girl commit? What on earth did she do? Do you think it's acceptable to do something so inhumane? Sadoko Hojo was a key stakeholder, both R and Shion-san. Shion-san's is apparently continuing to keep silent about R's whereabouts. But what would she do in exchange for this girl? It's shameless. You so much as lay a finger on her, you bastards won't get away with it. The situation has changed. The men sounded Irie all at once and bent him down to his knees on the floor. Then a sound like a striking hammer ran out, and with a breathtaking cry from Irie. Say it one last time. Don't get in our way. I'm still a doctor. I can't accept this, even if it costs me money. Is that so? Then... No, Irie. Run away. Begging you, go. At that moment, would you keep quiet? It's noisy and I'm having trouble sleeping. Just barely. You hear a squeaking sound coming from the mattress overhead. No way. It's Satoko? She's regained consciousness? What's the meaning of that to her? I've awoken just now. With all this racket, even the dead would jump up and shout. She said that. Satoko slowly got up from the bed and stood with her feet right in front. Do you not feel ashamed of yourselves? Gathering a bunch of gentlemen soldiers inside this tiny clinic? There's a saying about making a mountain out of a molehill. Are you all looking at a little girl like something frightening? If you wish to take me somewhere, you can do so without making threats. Coach doesn't know anything and is not double-dealing, so stop resorting to violence. Satoko spoke in a resolute voice. A vigor must have distracted them, as the men withdrew and caught their breath, then lowered their guns and stood at the ready. Take her away. No Kanoki signal, the men rushed over to the left and right sides of Satoko. Without resisting, Satoko slowly, but powerfully stepped forward. Don't go, Satoko. They'll kill you if you go, I'm certain of it. Weren't you the one who said so? You said you were truly glad to be my friend. You're the same way. I don't want you to die. So don't go. Don't die, you can't. You're going to die, then right here, Al. Satoko stomped a foot on the floor right in front of me. I couldn't help but gasp and barely suppress the sound, but I realised what she meant in an instant. Satoko was telling me, don't come with me. What's wrong? Nothing at all. My legs are still a little unsteady, so it made a loud noise. I want to jump out there. I want to rush out and say, take me and Satoko's. However, that would mean the end of everything. If that's the case, then I really abandoned my best friend when she's standing right before my eyes. Satoko. Bitch, thank you for all you've done. Give my regards to Mimi and everyone else. I know. You merely feel that way, isn't it? I have no regrets about giving up my life and protecting my friends. I understand. The words are directed not just at the coach, but also towards one other person. Can't do anything. Even if I reached my hand out, I couldn't reach her. So I have no choice but to shrink back. Dr. Irie, I'll ask for more details later. Come on, let's escort the director to another ring. Akanoki and the others left the room with Irie. The only one left in the room was me. It was completely silent inside the exam room. Blood came overflowing out of my mouth. I squeezed my fist so tight that the nails dug into my palm, and the blood slowly spread. Right there, I was filled with regret, sorrow, and shame, but I desperately concealed my voice and couldn't do anything but Dun. That is a very good cliffhanger to leave things off on, I believe. This is all going completely differently to how I expected. I expected it to go roughly similar to how it did last time, but tain't the case. Right. For you. And if I can hit the right button, that is going to be that for today. I am going to say thank you very much for watching. It is very much appreciated, and I do hope that you enjoyed. I will be streaming Nier Replicant this Saturday, where we will be seeing Ending B and maybe the start of Route C. And on Sunday it will be Destiny 2, where we'll be working towards some more challenges probably, and just hanging about and having a good time. Tuesday will be Final Fantasy XIV, where fingers crossed I will finally actually get the relic quest done, maybe. And the next Thursday will be more Higurashi When We Cry, Miotsukushi Omote. We will see just exactly what is going on behind Safe's attack. So thank you very much for watching, it is very much appreciated. Do have a wonderful evening and be excellent to each other, and I shall see you guys on Saturday.